Good evening. We are going to call the regular June meeting of the Verona Zoning Board of Adjustment to order at 8:05 p.m. Madam Secretary, would you please read the notice of this meeting and call the roll?
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township of Verona Zoning Board Adjustment, which is being held in person in the ballroom of the Verona Community Center located at 880 Bloomfield Avenue, Verona. The time and date of this meeting were included in the annual meeting notice posted in the Community Center and sent to the official newspaper of the Township, the Verona Cedar Grove Times and the Star Ledger, at least 48 hours preceding the time of this meeting. The agenda and the instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate time. All meetings are recorded. Those wishing to speak during any public comment period should only provide their name and municipality. Street addresses are not required. Please be advised that should a member of the public choose to state their street address, it will not be redacted from this recording. Sorry. Dr. Edith. Here. Miss Bradkis.
I'm happy with that. Mrs. Murphy Braddix. Okay, she'll be here late.
Mrs. DiBartolo.
Here.
Mr. Ryan.
Here.
Mr. Mathewson.
Here.
Mr. Cortez.
Here.
Vice Chair Weston.
Here.
Chairman McGinley.
Here.
Mr. Macera.
Here.
Mr. Peter Tenkate.
Here.
Mrs. Mish.
Yes.
It was just needed just before, right?
Yeah, I got it.
We're good.
Dr. Reed.
If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, let's start with some, although you've probably heard this before, let's start with some general information. This board deals with the issuance of variances from the Verona zoning ordinance. That ordinance establishes specific requirements for the land area in the township and regulates not only the uses permitted, but the size of the lots, setbacks required, parking, signs, conditional uses, and numerous other such regulations. An applicant is never entitled to a variance. Applicants must meet specific criteria contained in the state municipal land use law by satisfying certain legal standards of proof. The burden is on the applicants to show that they should be granted the specific relief requested. Depending on the type of variance requested, applicants will need to prove special reasons, undue hardship, a balance of benefits, and other criteria. These are legal proceedings. Public meeting notices have been published, neighbors have been notified, applicants and their representatives will provide sworn testimony and be subject to cross-examination. Any action this board takes at this meeting will be memorialized in a resolution document prepared by our legal counsel that will be reviewed and adopted, typically at our next regular meeting. At that time, any variances granted will become effective. That said, we are a board that conducts its business in a fairly informal manner. Applicants are sworn in, tell us what they want to do with their property and what they are asking the board to do. Board members will question witnesses, and then members of the public may question those witnesses. At the conclusion of the testimony, members of the public may make a statement regarding the application. After closing the public portion of the application, the board will deliberate and render a decision. If you're following along, next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Has everyone on the board had an opportunity to review the minutes of our May 9th meeting, which we took the page numbers off so you wouldn't be scared?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the...
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Thank you, Dr. Reese. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone abstain?
I abstain.
One abstention. Okay, that moves the minutes. Resolutions. Item F, we had one resolution from the last meeting, application 2024-07, 114 Park Avenue. This was the garage shift to the other side and the terrace on top.
Mr. Chair, on the resolution, the dates for the Boswell report were left off, so the date is actually April 24th, so they will be changed from X's to April 24th, but I believe the resolution can still be voted on.
Okay, so we will amend it. So the X's on item 1 will become April 24th, 24? Okay. All right, has everyone had an opportunity to review that resolution? If so,
I have a question about this resolution, however. In the minutes we had from the last meeting, with this application in particular, we had asked the applicant to put shrubbery around, and there was wording in the minutes about that. Does this resolution capture that conversation, or are we just going to forget that we ever mentioned that shrubbery was part of it? Am I missing something?
Paragraph number 2, the applicant will comply with all representations made by and on behalf of the applicant during the hearing.
Okay,
So-
so that you feel that that's included
Yes,
in there? Okay.
yes.
Because I know that there were some people who were very concerned about the fact that
Correct.
there would be just a concrete wall.
And the resolution, if you will, of the issue was really not concluded as far as what kind of shrubbery would be in there. So when I was drafting it, I just felt like the representation, so that it would be really satisfactory with the other post-approval conditions to Boswell about what would satisfy the concerns and what did the applicant represent, basically.
Because it was that discussion that really pushed that application
Right.
forward.
But it was never resolved as far as what shrubs would be there, et cetera. Right.
That was the condition of approval, though, was it? No.
well,
I thought we did include
It
that
is,
as
it is a
of approval.
condition.
wasn't a specific.
It's a condition that they made the representation during their testimony that they would plant shrubbery to the board's satisfaction. And the board's satisfaction is therefore, by matter of practice, up to the engineer. Because we didn't say go to a landscape architect or anything like that.
But counsel, you're satisfied that the resolution would cover that issue?
I drafted it, so yes.
All right, well.
Is everyone else good with that?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-08.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. All right. Okay, we've arrived at the point in the agenda where we are going to discuss new business. And the first application we have is application 2024-08 for 48 Durrell Street. This application was carried from the May 9th meeting where no testimony was taken. And the applicant has requested to be carried to the July 11th hearing. So at this point, if no one has a problem with that, we should make a motion to carry this application to the July 11th hearing. And the applicant, I believe the applicant has waived their time requirements.
The applicant has, yes, Mr. Chairman, waived the time requirements. If indeed, well, let's have the board vote first, and then I can do the announcement. Okay.
I'll make a motion to carry application 2024-08 to the July 11th meeting.
Second.
Got it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous.
For any members of the public who are here for application 2024-08, 48 Durrell Street, that application has been adjourned until the board's July 11th, 2024 hearing in this room, beginning at 8 p.m. No further notice will be required. So this is the only notice that will be provided.
Okay. We have 4 applications remaining on the agenda. This is a very full evening, so anything you can do to expedite the process would be greatly appreciated. We do not take additional testimony after 11 p.m. at night, so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. In the beginning, we do have an 8th member who will be showing up shortly, but I think we can, you need 7, so I think we're good. And we can begin with application 2024-02, 698 700 Bloomfield Avenue, which has been carried since March 14th. So we're looking forward to hearing this application. It should be, Counselor. The yellow light is on.
Oh, it's red. That's why it is.
Just for the record, Mrs. Murphy Braddock has arrived. Her timing is impeccable.
Working?
Counselor.
Working?
You're ready to go.
Can I sit? I don't want to. Yes?
Well, if there isn't anything else you do,
Oh, I can stand at the podium, at the microphone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Angelo Cifelli Jr. of the firm of Pyro Zinna Cifelli Patterson Genetempo. I'm the attorney for the applicant. With the board's permission, I'd like to make just a brief opening. I'm well aware of what the chairman just said about time constraints. This application is one to transform what has been an empty building for quite some time into a restaurant right next door to the Parkside Restaurant, which this applicant also operates. They've been in Verona for some time. They're familiar with Verona. I believe the town is familiar with how they operate, and I think that's a factor. There are some things I'd like to bring to the board's attention. It is a quirk of the zoning ordinance. If this restaurant was by itself, if there was no plan for residential units above it, it would be a permitted use. We would not be here, we'd be in front of the planning board. Also, if it were offices above, or retail stores, although I don't know why anybody would put a retail store on the second floor, but if they were either of those, it would be permitted as a conditional use. So the only reason we are here tonight is because there's residential apartments applied for above the restaurant. I wanted again to say that we believe that this application comports very, very strongly with Verona's master plan, which calls for a revitalization of Bloomfield Avenue, specifically calls for mixed uses of this kind. Unfortunately, the zoning ordinance hasn't caught up with the master plan yet, but so that's why we're here. So at that brief introduction, I'd like to call my first witness, who is the operator. Matthew?
Mr. Pissarro, can you stand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
You state your full name and address for the record.
Sure. Matthew Pissarro, West Caldwell, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Matthew, can you give the board a benefit? What is your position with the applicant?
I'm the operating partner at Scopos Hospitality, which is the parent company to the Parkside Social.
And how many restaurants do you operate under that umbrella,
We operate 5 restaurants in Northeast New Jersey.
including Parkside here in Verona?
Correct.
And how long have you been operating Parkside?
Since 2021.
Can you just give the board the benefit of some of the things you have planned for the new restaurant, vis-à-vis operating hours, employees?
Yep. In terms of the restaurant space and why we're interested in it is there are a lot of comparabilities with our existing location and the potential new location. One being leveraging the infrastructure of the existing restaurant in terms of staffing, management, and personnel. And in terms of our hours, we'll have complementary hours to our existing location, again, to keep that in line with what we are doing and what we have been doing at the Parkside Social.
And can I ask you, what, for lack of a better way of putting it, what's the menu in the new restaurant?
We're looking to do a Mexican concept, so something that is a little different in the area, something that will complement what we are doing at the Parkside Social, and something a little different for the town.
And would you say that concept is family-oriented?
Definitely. My 2 kids, they love eating their tacos and tortillas as well.
Okay. So you mentioned that there would be some economy of scale in having the 2 restaurants. They're literally right next door, is that correct?
That's correct.
And for the board's benefit, do you know how long the building that you wish to occupy has been vacant?
My assumption is between 10 to 15 years, if not longer.
Okay. That's all I have of this witness. I'll defer to the board for questions.
Just one question. You said complimentary hours to Parkside, which would, just for our records, which would be what?
Our current hours, which do change seasonally, are 4 p.m. during the week to 11 p.m. Weekends we're open till 12 a.m. and 12 to 1 a.m.
If I may, one redirect. In the time you've been here, Matthew, and the hours you have operated, have you received any noise complaints or police reports of excessive noise or gatherings or any of that nature?
No, we have not. And to be honest, the late night atmosphere, it's not something that Verona really has. We are open later, but our restaurant does clear out. Our existing restaurant does clear out relatively early during the week and on the weekends.
For the proposed restaurant, how many chairs or seats would be available for customers?
I believe the number's around 48 to 50 seats.
And do you have a rough breakdown of how many tables that would be? And plus, I'm assuming there's a bar area?
The bar itself would be relatively small. We do have rough drawings. Bar seats might only be 12 to 14 bar seats with a few high tops on the bar side. The dining room area would have, the 20 to 30 seats itself, maybe, again, I don't know the table count off the top of my head.
And once again, just for the record, you would be sharing your current liquor license with the proposed new restaurant?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you clarify how that works? Like, how do you, I mean, you're straddling a property line, right?
Yes, our liquor attorney has already actually gone through with speaking to the ABC in terms of sharing that liquor license. And as long as the properties are adjacent to one another, you're able to share the liquor license. An example of that is the Finn, or what used to be the Finn and Crosby and Montclair is an example where they're connecting buildings and you're able to share the liquor license between the properties.
Will the properties be connected inside?
Yes, that's the goal.
And how many people employees do you intend to have working, let's say, during a Friday night shift?
Yep. We'll have our general manager who's already at the Parkside Social, so they'll be overseeing both locations. And again, the proximity helps with that. We'll have our current chef who will also oversee both properties. In terms of staff, one bartender, you could probably do 2 servers on the restaurant side because it is smaller, and two people, maybe 3 people in the kitchen, depending on if the chef's over there or at the other restaurant.
James, question maybe for Mr. Cifelli. Mr. Cifelli, since there's one license, still consider this, would you consider this one establishment or 2 establishments?
Well, it's an interesting question, but I think from the perspective of this board, it would have to be 2, because they're separate in that if it's not, in other words, they're not expanding the current restaurant. So I would have to come down on the side of 2.
So you would say that the restriction of 100 patrons, I don't even know what that, would there be 100 combined patrons capacity?
Yes.
All right, so then I think, Mr. Cifelli, then you would suggest to the board that 2 separate establishments and therefore 100 on each side and not a maximum of 200?
It will not reach anywhere near that, but yes, they are separate.
It will not reach 200, but perhaps over 100 combined.
It will not reach 200.
Right, okay.
I'm not sure it reaches 100. If
Just to follow up on Mr. Macera's point, which I think is very pertinent, you're saying it's 2 separate establishments, but if I heard you correctly, the staffs are going to be shared between the 2 restaurants. You have the same management team's going to be running both of them, and
Correct.
you're going to have some employees that are going to be working in both places.
Correct. Our salaried managers will oversee both locations. It's something we've done with multiple restaurants in different locations before, almost geographically as a regional manager. In this case, the properties are right next to each other. The hourly staff will be separate. So if you are a server at one location, you're a server at one location. Again, there'll be different menus, so different things to learn. It's a way to keep hours up for our hourly employees by hiring different staff. So they're not competing for hours.
Okay, so they're not going to be going through the doorway.
No.
No, I'm very serious about it. They're not going to be running from one restaurant to another. They're going to be assigned on a specific day to work at Parkside or to the Mexican restaurant.
That's
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So in the plans here, are you sharing kitchen then too?
No, we will be putting in a new kitchen in the restaurant.
Okay, so it has this unfinished basement, you don't have plans yet for where you're putting your kitchen?
The kitchen will be on the first floor.
It'll be on the first floor?
Yep.
Do you have your architect here?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you be the correct person to talk to about snow removal and waste removal?
Yes. Snow removal, we already have a company for snow removal. Obviously, depending when it snows, we have somebody assigned for that with the current condition of the property. Waste removal, we'll have a dumpster in the rear of the property.
Okay. And the dumpster is on your new plans up against the back of the building?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And how frequently will it be addressed?
Typically, it depends on volume. Most of our restaurants are at least 3 times a week. We either increase or decrease that with volume, but we don't let our dumpsters get overflowed. They're usually picked up pretty frequent. Again, depending on volume.
Where are you advising your employees to park if they come by vehicle?
Yeah, we would advise them to park where they are parking now. To be honest, I don't actually know where they are parking now currently, whether they're parking on Bloomfield Avenue or if they're parking on the side street, Rockland Terrace.
You won't be advising them to park in the lot?
No, they will not be using the lot to park.
Go ahead.
And again, because it was brought up at the very beginning of the conversation, the issue is because of the mixed residential and restaurant use that we are before the board. Who is using the lot?
The whole building's currently vacant right now.
I mean, who would use the lot?
The guests for the restaurant and the apartment tenants, if they need a parking spot.
Okay.
So I guess for the follow-up, I guess assuming you have to have designated spots for the residents?
Correct.
Then how many spots would we have? So the residents, is it like 2 spots per residence, or what is the, so it's 2? All right, so you'd have 4 of the 8 spots dedicated for residents?
Yes, correct.
There's 7 spots. Just to make sure I get this right, there are 7 spots, 1 is ADA compliant.
Correct.
So 4 spots for the residents, give or take, if 1 is ADA. So it could be either, what's the potential of how many are left for the restaurant?
Yeah, 2 or 3, but again, depending on the apartment tenants, if they need parking or not.
Okay.
If you could refresh my memory, the existing restaurant, do you have any parking spaces for the customers for the park side?
Currently, no.
No, okay. That must have been from a bygone era, but that it got, so that, no, I mean, I'm not being facetious. I mean, it's one of the very few restaurants in town that has absolutely no parking spaces available. But it's been a restaurant forever, I get that. So they must have, maybe they, established it before we set parking standards. I don't know if anybody on the board has any recollection of that.
You have a gas station next to that restaurant, correct?
It's a Mavis Tire Center.
Right. Do people park in there when they go to your restaurant? Is that available to them?
If people park there, it's not by our direction, but Mavis is typically open till at least 6 p.m. Thursday nights, they're open till 8 p.m. So when they're there, no, our guests aren't parking while they're there.
Have you attempted to gain any off-site parking that would be beneficial to your customers?
We've reached out to some larger lots in the area. To be honest, we haven't gotten much in terms of a response when you do reach out. The one building and parking lot that is, I think it's an Investors Bank right now. We tried to reach out to the property owner there because, to my knowledge, that building is no longer in operation. But again, we haven't had success getting additional parking specifically from a private parking lot.
Where are you expecting your customers to park?
Along Bloomfield Avenue. Again, the majority of the businesses on Bloomfield Avenue are typically closed by our business hours, 4 p.m. to, through the evening. The post office down the street, Jack's Cafe, the dog salon right across the street are typically closed by the time that we have peak volume. There is municipal parking within even a quarter of a mile of a walk, which isn't too far of a walk to go out for dinner. And there are side streets. Fairview Avenue has a lot of street parking as well.
Are you talking about the parking space behind the middle school as being community parking? Is that where you're talking about?
There's a parking lot behind the Bagel Witch. There's a municipal parking lot there. Behind the school, the middle school, there's parking.
Mr. Pissarro, is your traffic study person?
Yes, I was about to say, my traffic expert is up next.
Perhaps this is a,
Better for him.
Yeah, I think he could better handle it.
Can you talk about deliveries, like food deliveries, whatnot?
Yeah, typically our deliveries, we'll set delivery windows for our vendors. They're usually mid-mornings to early afternoons, depending on who's on site. We don't have a schedule set for our employees, but if somebody's doing prep at 10 a.m., we could have deliveries come at 10 a.m. Typically, the staff is there an hour or so before we open, so that's typically when we have our deliveries come.
And would they be in addition to the Parkside deliveries? So two separate entities delivering?
No, we would use the same vendors. So actually, from their perspective, it's easier because they can do the same drops on the same days. So we use a few different food suppliers, and I'm sure they'll be happy to have more orders going to the same location.
Just one more question for me, and congrats on the scaling. In all the other venues that you've had or past venues, have you had experience running a mixed-use development? Have you had opportunity in the past?
Yes, our restaurant in Nutley, we have, actually it's the same, very similar layout. We have 2 apartments upstairs and we have the restaurant downstairs. We have we actually unfortunately closed a restaurant in Harrison, New Jersey this past year. That was underneath a very large residential building with about 300 units upstairs, all mixed use. And in Jersey City, we have a location, again, with four apartments upstairs.
Also, the Parkside has a banquet room, or a rentable space just for a specific party. Do you anticipate doing that here?
The side room at the Parkside Social it's for a la carte dining as well. We from an events perspective, we section every room off as a private room. In this space, it's really just the bar side and the dining side. So we would technically have the dining side as an event space, or you can rent out the whole space, again, depending on the type or size and style of a party.
And potentially prior to 4 p.m.?
No, we don't typically run events outside of our operating hours.
Are there any other questions from the board members for our owner representative? If not, is there anyone from the public who would like to ask a question of the owner representative based on the testimony he's presented this evening? Yes, sir. If you would, please come to the microphone. Your name, but you do not need to state your address.
I would, because it's relevant. John Maliffi, I live on 12 Rockland Terrace, right behind the present Parkside and the Gemmel's property they bought. Also, my property, there are 2 buildings run this way. Mavis runs here, and my property runs this way. I don't know if you want to get a map if you want to see it. But the questions I have is, I had spoken to Matt after the last adjournment. We had spoken a couple of times over the phone. I had some concerns that I asked him. I don't know if he addressed it with the dumpster being moved, if it could be right up where I'd asked him to put it. But my concerns is if to have the same.
At this point, if you could ask him questions,
well,
there will be an opportunity.
This just maybe
At
it's a
the
long
end,
time now.
I was going to say, at the end, we'll have an opportunity for you
To ask everything you want?
to give us a statement on it. At this point, if you could
Maybe I should wait, then I'll wait to the end.
Yeah.
That might be, okay, I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Timing is everything, right?
I was happy before time we got there.
If you can state exactly where that dumpster you intend to locate.
Yeah, right now our updated plans is to put the dumpster right behind our building, much further away than Mr. Gliffy's property.
And that was done in response to your conversations with the neighbors?
Yes, absolutely.
That would be right up by where the steps are to go to the basement.
Yes, yes.
And are we required to build an enclosure around the dumpsters? No, I thought we had to have something that we had to mask them from sight and smell.
If I may,
Yeah.
Commissioner, we intend to fence it in.
So you know.
And how do you get into spot one? On your seat, in your,
We could ask the traffic.
Let's the traffic guy that one,
okay,
because that's going to cause a traffic jam.
yeah.
Okay. Counselor, I think we're good to move on to your next witness.
Yes, I would call Mr. Stager. Mr. Stager, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you state your name and work address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Joseph Steiger, Staigar, and business address is 245 Main Street in Chester, New Jersey.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to be presumptuous, but I know that Mr. Stager has testified before this board before, and in the interest of time, unless you want me to go through his qualifications, I guess you can call.
No, not unless you tell us what college you went to.
New Jersey Institute of Technology.
He's good.
Are you conflicted?
He's good. We accept Mr. Stager as a professional engineer.
Mr. Stager, can you give the board, rather than me asking you questions, we're familiar with the application, and you've done a study which you presented to the board, is that true?
That's correct.
Could you just, you want to provide?
Yes, traffic impact study was prepared. We went out and took traffic counts, Bloomfield Avenue, Rockford Terrace. In addition to that, we did parking counts as well, on street and within municipal lots, within reasonable convenient walking distance to the site, determine how many vacant spaces would be available. The second aspect is we projected the amount of traffic that this restaurant would generate in terms of volume, and we superimposed that onto the existing volume to determine the level of service. The traffic impact, there's no change in the level of service. Level of service, I'm sure the board has heard from traffic engineers, is characteristics of the flow conditions of an intersection. And just as in grade school, it ranges from A through F, and A being the best condition with minimal delay, F being the worst condition where the volume exceeds the volume exceeds the capacity of the intersection itself. And what we determined was that we are within good levels of service A through C. So we're in that upper range with even with the additional traffic. So traffic impact was addressed by the study that we prepared. I think the big elephant in the room is the parking. We are asking for a parking variance on the site. We're required to have, per your ordinance, 27 parking spaces, which matches the number of seats and the square footage based on empirical data traffic engineers use for determining parking demand. So your ordinance is in line with what the experience has been in the field, 8 for 27 parking spaces. We're providing 8 on site, so there's a deficiency of 19 spaces. And Ms. Reese had pointed out, well, where are they going to park? And that was my job to establish how that would work. You'll hear from our planner that subsequently the type of area that we're within. We're in, I'm not going to call it a central business district, but we're certainly a commercial area of your township. And shared parking for multiple types of uses, particularly in the downtown business area, is very common and actually look forward to. You have uses such as the Mavis Tire Center, such as the elementary school, that shut down at 3:30, that shut down at 5 o'clock, and you're proposing a restaurant that's going to be busier, say, after 5 p.m. when those other businesses are closed. So your parking demand in the general area is going to fluctuate depending upon the demand of the various uses. So here we're proposing here an evening use when many of the other uses, particularly retail and commercial uses, school uses, are shut down or minimal activity. So there's a compatibility to be able to use your municipal resources of parking, the parking on the streets, as well as the municipal lots in the area itself. So what we did was during the peak period that this restaurant would be operating, and the peak period is going to be Friday and Saturday evenings, and we went out between 5 and 8 p.m. To actually do counts. And we took those counts on streets, generally speaking, about 900 feet, maximum 900 feet away, which is about a 5-minute walk to the site. We went on Bloomfield Avenue, Rockland Terrace, Orchard Street, Grove Avenue, Fairview Avenue, Lincoln Street, and South Prospect Street. The average walking distance is 900 feet, but nothing significantly beyond that. So again, about a 5-minute walk. We took a look at the municipal lot number 2. That's the one off of Gould Avenue, which is only a 3-minute walk. There is the municipal loop. I call it the municipal loop where the police station is. There's no signs that restrict parking on that loop, and I'm going to assume that any of those spaces are allowed by the public to be used. I didn't include them in our survey because of the ambiguity. There are some parking spaces, I believe 4 parking spaces as you exit the loop for police vehicles only, so the public can't use those. The library has for library patrons only. Friday night at 7 o'clock, I don't know if who's in the library or it's probably closed, it's available, but again, I didn't include those. From a practical standpoint, those spaces can be if they're used by the public, but again, not included in our survey. But we also took a look at, I call it lot number 1 in my report. That's one down by Park Place. It's a walk. It's 0.3 miles. It's a 9-minute walk. Is it doable? If I'm going to this restaurant, my mind is made up. I know I can always find a parking space in that lot 1, which I know I personally park there quite often. It's empty. I'm not going to say empty, but there are more than a significant amount of empty spaces within that lot 1 off of Park Place. If my mind's made up to go to this restaurant, I can't find a spot that's conveniently available, but I know that I can always get one in lot 1, I may choose lot 1. Again, we took into account those spaces with and without those spaces. Bottom line, the conclusion that we came up with, we have a minimum of 30 empty spaces on the streets that I mentioned and within lot 2. So these are all within a 3-minute to a 5-minute walk of the site. 30 spaces. Again, we're deficient by 19. We need 27. We have 8 on site. We're deficient by 19. So minimally, we have 30 within very convenient walking distance. Beyond that, if I take into account the municipal loop and that lot 1 down by Park Place, we have 109 vacant spaces minimally on those peak periods on Friday night and Saturday night. So the conclusion is where they're going to park, there is municipal resources within reasonable and convenient walking distance of this site to accommodate the parking requirements that this site will generate. And so therefore, I believe that this site, the variance can be granted without any detriment to the zone plan, to detriment to the neighborhood, because we do have ample parking on the street to accommodate this additional demand. I think there was one question, how do you get out of space number 1? I parked there, there's a dumpster in front of they parked there, you have to back out onto the street. So it is a backup maneuver.
How about space number 8? Because it would appear, is that also an existing, okay, because it would appear that is also an existing curb cut. However, there's a section there of 3 spaces that.
Yeah, space number 8 is at the end. You have the 24-foot aisle behind it, the middle 24 feet, and that allows the maneuverability to back up, make a left turn, and go out or the driveway.
So the only
front down.
Okay. I'm just, maybe you shouldn't have walked so far away from the plan.
Yeah, let me get back. Why don't you bring it with you? I'll bring it with you.
I'm looking at the plan, and the directional arrows on the plan show an in and out in what would be the southerly driveway, and then there appears to be just an out in the northerly driveway behind spot number 8.
Right. And that's a general pattern. But so what's the question?
The question is, are there 2 driveways?
Yes. And
Okay.
the answer to that is yes. Right now, it's a fully depressed curve. We're trying to provide some order to it and the landscaping, which is a benefit. And that's why we have that curve area behind, I'll call it the seepage pit, where that round circle is. But we do have proposing a depressed curve along the area to the south, and then that short exit only area to the north. So we're improving upon the existing condition in terms of providing some full face curve and some order of circulation by proposing what we're doing.
I would just ask, I'm not a very good driver. If I were parked somehow face in spot number 8,
Yeah.
would I back all the way out onto Rockland Terrace?
You have 25, well, about 24 feet from the new curve.
Okay.
That we have along Rockwood. 24 feet is a typical backup aisle for perpendicular parking. So I could back out on route, on space from space number 8, not leave the property itself. The property line is there. So I'm not anywhere near Rockwood, which is another 10 or so feet. And then I can make a maneuver and exit the southerly driveway.
Okay. I guess my question is the need for that exit up there, assuming since these are all perpendicular, you're going to go into a spot, theoretically you're going to back out, you could back out and go in and out the southerly driveway.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think you made a good point, and I'm going to look to my architect and site planner. I don't see a reason why we couldn't do that. So we could close that northerly driveway and just keep the area open to the south.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Sure. You ready for that? Okay. Just want to make sure, the report that you had drawn up are dated March 4th. That's still, you haven't made any changes to that, so that's still in effect?
Correct.
Okay. I don't know whether this is something you normally do with a traffic study, but did you ever consider interviewing some of the people who eat in the current restaurant and ask them where they considered parking?
In the legal parking space, I would venture to say, I think it's going to be, they're going to grab whatever's convenient and looks safe to them, and I mean, sometimes I may avoid Bloomfield Avenue because it's just a difficult parallel parking maneuver and go down one of the side streets or the municipal.
I'm asking this question because essentially, you're competing, these two restaurants are competing for the same parking. In my estimation, they're competing for the same parking spaces. So you're going to be adding, as I pointed out earlier, the Parkside Lounge, for whatever reason, has no parking at all on premises. Okay, so they're already on the street. You're now going to be adding another restaurant competing for street parking. I don't dispute any of the, the accounts that you have in your report. It's very, it's very thorough, but it still concerns me that if the restaurant is successful, we're going to have a lot of overflow parking, on the surrounding streets. And I grant you the fact that it's mostly in hours that are not in direct competition with some of the other stores there. But I'm just expressing a concern that I have regarding that. And just for your own information, the municipal lot off of Grove Street, unfortunately, the town has basically taken away a lot of available spaces by making many more permit spaces. So you can't park on those spaces anytime. That's a 24/7 thing. So there's a limited number of spaces in that lot that you could use. The lot that's in back of the off of the Park Place, I totally agree with you that there's ample parking there virtually any time unless the school is holding an event or something. So I just wanted to point that out.
Good points. And I think the thing is there competition? Well, you may consider a competition, but the bottom line is there's enough parking to accommodate both of those uses. I think Yogi Berra summed it up. It's so busy, nobody goes there anymore. So people still come to the area because it's going to be attractive. It's going to feel safe. You're going to feel the vibrancy. The last thing that I'm sure this town wants is a vacant building for another 15 years on that corner.
Look, you've nailed it. I'm going to cut right to the chase. I don't like to see vacant buildings on Bloomfield Avenue. And, and the parking thing does concern me, and that's what I'm wrestling with. I'm going to come right out front. I have no problem with, with somebody occupying the space, but the parking is a concern, which is why I want to get as much of my concerns out to you. And we had asked the owner initially whether or not any overtures were made to some of the other businesses, or even the down on Gould Street, the Episcopal Church has talked about limited hours. They may have some spaces that they could designate in their off hours if you were willing to give them a little money, a little cash No, I mean, you're not going to donate it to you, but I think it would be reasonable at one point, and we have that Wells Fargo bank now, we have a lot of vacant spaces over there. At one point, the town actually got spaces for them to put parking meters in. So I would hope that the owner would consider exploring those possibilities, regarding getting designated spots for the restaurant. And as you pointed out, it's usually at night when these places are not being used. So just a thought.
Mr. Ryan,
No harm for them to do so.
Mr. Ryan, I'll give
can
you
you
some
discuss?
history. I have another point. When that bank was first approved, they had to allow public parking. And for many, many years, it wasn't enforced. And then finally, it was enforced. But the first bank that was there, that was a condition of approval. But anyway, for the drive-through. Mr. Cifelli, I just want to clarify something. And Mr. Steiger, I think you might need a variance, and if the board is inclined to approve this, it would be, I think, almost ministerial. But Mr. Steiger, I think you said that space one, you have to back out into the street. So 150-12.8H does not permit that. And again, I don't think it's material, but I would want to make sure that if there is approval, we we just add that in as a variance.
Yeah, and if that were a concern of the board, then I would recommend a condition that that space be used maybe by the general manager or someone who is familiar, that's not going to be moving in and out all day long, so a low use.
I'll leave that up to the board, but,
Right.
but that's, I just wanted to make sure for the record that would be a variance.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to Mr. Ryan's concern, and I know this only for myself, there's a great number of people now who don't drive to restaurants, they Uber for reasons.
Can you talk about public
Well,
transportation?
no, because they can drink, I think is the real reason, but I think you will find that a lot of the customers at Parkside do in fact Uber, as they do in many restaurants these days.
Can you discuss public transportation? Because a lot of municipalities around here have transit-oriented designs, and that's what we should be looking for to reduce the parking count. Can you talk to that?
Well, the type of use that for the residential use is obviously the mass transit is important for viability. But for, other than employees, I would venture to say not many patrons use buses to get to the facility, but rather they would use Uber or other ride-share methods to in and out of the site, which doesn't demand parking.
Do you have any information about how many people walk to the restaurant? I mean, last time I went to Parkside, I actually walked, and I live all the way over by Verona Park. So I'm just curious if we have any idea.
Very good point. Yes, I think this is going to be a family-oriented restaurant. It's going to be one that's going to be fit into the neighborhood, that people are going to want to bring their kids there as well. I know my grandkids, they love Mexican food, and it's really a family-oriented type of restaurant. So in terms of walking, I totally agree. Being where it's located and the surrounding neighborhood, it's a residential neighborhood, it's going to be a lot easier for someone to walk there than it is park their car probably further from where they live as well. So you made a very good point about, I believe that we're going to see a substantial amount of walking patrons as well.
Mr. Chairman, the handicap parking space, where is the handicap entrance? Is there one that seems on the first floor architectural, the rear door is for service and not for patrons?
I'm going to, Mr. Haynes is the architect, is the next witness. He'd be better off answering that.
All right, would you recommend like a crosswalk from the drop-off point to the sidewalk in this lot, just for safety, the accessible path or something?
I'm sorry, Pete.
Where the drop-off point for the handicap spot is, the access aisle? To the sidewalk.
Oh, okay. But that wouldn't, there'd be nobody crossing that crosswalk. And if I'm following you, just more or less, take the extension of the hatched area of the handicap space and run it to the sidewalk.
Yeah, just to show where they're supposed to go.
All right, yeah, I guess, I would agree with that. Even though there's really no vehicles crossing that, again, it's a good visual to aid the handicapped people, how to get to where you get. And rather than trying to find a space where the HVA systems are and everything, right, brings you to the sidewalk and then into the building.
It might also prevent somebody from parking adjacent to that single spot, number one.
Good point. We've seen that happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board have any additional questions for our traffic engineer? Is there anyone from the public who has a question of the traffic engineer on the testimony he's presented this evening? Seeing none, Counselor, I would turn back over to you for your next witness.
Mr. Chairman, contrary to Mr. Stager said, my architect is not next, it's my planner.
But he's coming.
The architect will be here, but he's...
We fully expect Mr. Steck to tell us everybody rides bicycles and walks.
Well, it's carried.
Mr. Steck, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Could you state your name and your business address for the record, please?
Peter G. Steck, S-T-E-C-K, 80 Maplewood Avenue, Maplewood, New Jersey.
We do not need to vet Mr. Stack.
Mr. Steck, did you, in connection with this application, you're familiar with the application?
I am.
Could you just tell the board what other resources you looked to in doing your report?
Well, I looked at the property, examined the surrounding area, reviewed your zoning ordinance and your master plan.
Could you give the board the benefit of what you found?
Yes, I produced a report dated March 5th of 2024, which I believe the board has, and I'm going to just briefly go through it. This property, although vacant at the moment, is a mixed-use building. It had a dry cleaner on the first floor, 2 apartments on the second floor. The rear is partially paved, and as you know, the applicant is extending the pavement to get what additional parking is possible. The applicant is not altering the second floor. There are 2 two-bedroom apartments. They're going to stay as 2 two-bedroom apartments. The application, as I understand it, is going to use the first floor as a full-service sit-down restaurant with 46 seats. I could be corrected by the architect, but that's what I recall to be the seating capacity. There will be a doorway open between the 2 buildings, and I presume that there has to be an amendment to the liquor license, because usually a liquor license has a geographic area. So probably your governing body is the local ABC board, and they may have to chime in on this. This is in a commercial corridor. And already described, you have the applicant's existing restaurant next door, and then Mavis Tire. You do have residential uses down Rockland Terrace. To the downhill on Bloomfield Avenue to the east, you have across Rockland, you have a Canine Design, Bella Salon and Spa, Jazz Cafe, followed by the diner there. This is primarily a corridor. It's not in the very center of your central business district, but it's still considered part of your town center. And there are meter parking on Bloomfield Avenue that operate from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., so the meters are no longer effective on there. And there are also some meters on Rockland Terrace for part of that. And as you know, there's only parking on one side of Rockland Terrace. And in my report on page 4, I had some aerial photographs that show the area. We're before the Board of Adjustment for a use variance. Your ordinance allows in this zone retail stores and service establishments, financial institutions, daycare centers, full-service restaurants are a permitted principal use. So if we said we're going to close off the second floor and not have any apartments, just leave it vacant, we would be a permitted use in the zone. But because we are asking for a mixed use, we want to retain the apartments, and because the way your ordinance reads, we can have apartments over offices, we can have apartments over retail, but not referenced, at least in your zoning ordinance, is apartments over a restaurant. So we are a mixed use. We need I'm taking the worst case scenario, a D1 variance for the use, but it's not the classic D1 variance where you're putting a gas station in a single-family zone. Again, the use is permitted. What makes it in violation is we want to retain the 2 apartments on the 2nd floor. So it's not the classic Medici case, because it's almost like a relief from a conditional use requirement. Because we have apartments on the 2nd floor, because we think it's a good thing to keep those apartments there, aside from the issue of having income from the apartments, it's certainly better security to have someone on the property 24/7. We do need a parking variance, and as indicated, we're deficient technically by 19 spaces, although this property will never have sufficient parking. That's the nature of it. Like the restaurant next door, this was developed a fair amount of years ago. If every property along Bloomfield Avenue had its own parking on the site that complied with the code, you wouldn't have a town center. You'd have a Route 23 or Route 22 where you can't walk from one place to another because they're so separated, because everyone has parking on their properties. It's just the nature of a downtown, and that's why there's on-street parking, and that's why the public steps up to provide some public parking. Part of my analysis was looking at your master plan. This is a very comfortable argument that your master plan of 2022, so it's fairly recent, it talked about mixed use being an attractive use, and it said on page 48, mixed use developments typically with active uses such as retail shops, restaurants, or businesses on the lower floors with more private uses such as apartments or office space on the upper floors have been increasing in popularity compared to single-use commercial areas. So at least in the words of your master plan, restaurants on the ground floor with apartments above were envisioned to be a mixed use. Your master plan found that it's a good type of use to have mixed use. It adds vibrancy to the downtown. Your master plan also said that some of the conditions for conditional uses are discourage mixed uses. Mixed use requirement is 20% open space, yet the zone allows 100% coverage. So there were things that the master plan discovered that didn't make a lot of sense in it. So it found that it promoted, mixed use promoted economic development. The master plan said the requirement that there be an equal amount of first floor to, let's say, residential use was discouraging because a lot of buildings, areas permitted 3 stories. So you wouldn't have a 50-50 ratio. We happen to have a 50-50 ratio here. Part of the master plan research was to ask the public, what would you like to see in your downtown? And 61% of the respondents said, we'd like to see more restaurants. So at least in terms of the research that was done by the planning board in doing its master plan, it felt that restaurants are something that the public wants. It said that restaurants would be considered part of a mixed use. And it said that some of the requirements are overly strict for conditional uses in the ordinance. Now we're at the proof sections. This is a D1 variance. Our restaurant isn't permitted by right because we have 2 apartments above. So I have to show that some purposes of the municipal land use law are advanced, and I have to show that the use is particularly suited to the property. I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to say I think we meet the Medici standards, but the footnote here is that it's not like we're putting in an outright prohibited use. If I kept the apartments vacant, I would automatically be a permitted use on the property. So as I mentioned, there were several goals in the 2022 master plan that we advanced. The plan encourages mixed-use developments along Bloomfield Avenue. It said that there's a public interest in having more restaurants, and it said that the conditional use standards were somewhat harsh in that they tended to discourage mixed uses, and the master plan likes mixed uses. In terms of the municipal land use law, there are three purposes that I cited that I believe are promoted by approving this use. This is 4055D-2, purposes A, G, and M. A talks about encouraging municipal action to guide appropriate use of development in a manner which promotes the health, safety, morals, and welfare. It's appropriate, in my opinion, to have a mixed use on this site. It's already a mixed use. Number two, G talks about providing sufficient space in an appropriate location. And again, this is not in the very heart of your business district, and because there are automotive uses in the area, but you're not really pedestrian oriented. You have Mavis Tire, you have rent-a-cars across the street. So again, it's not the heart of your pedestrian environment, but I believe that this is a suitable location. And purpose M talks about lessening the cost of development. And what is somewhat unique about this, we get to share the staff of the restaurant next door, and that's a more efficient use of land. Plus the fact that this use does not peak at the same time as other uses. I find that the restaurant use is particularly suited to the property. We don't need to expand the building at all. We can share a liquor license, which has become crucial in many instances to have a successful restaurant. And again, this may require action of the governing body as the ABC board, but the answer is it's done before. We're going to have an interior doorway connecting the two, and it is it better assures that this is a successful restaurant. It is also particularly suited, again, because we're not quite in the very heart of the business district. It's a high pedestrian area. This is a little bit more relaxed because of the automotive uses in the area. Also, I note that patrons for restaurants tend to be more inclined to walk a distance for a good restaurant. This is not like we're buying things and we have shopping carts. We're not going to go, 4 blocks with a shopping cart. But people that are attracted to certain kinds of restaurants, I think, because they're not carrying goods necessarily, although at the end of the day, if they don't finish, there may be doggy bags, but this is not a hamper to someone walking at a distance. So I think one of the characteristics of a restaurant use is its off-peak hours, and patrons tend to walk a little further for restaurants that they like. So I think there are 3 purposes of the municipal land use law. They're advanced. I think the use is particularly suited to the property. In terms of the negative criteria, I'll go through several points. This is already a mixed-use building. The building is being upgraded physically, but not being expanded. And there is additional pavement and cleaning up in the back, and we're compensating for the additional pavement because of drainage improvements. The prior use, it's been vacant, but we're replacing it with a use that the planning board found that the citizens, 61% thought that it would be good to have additional restaurants. I'll repeat, under the heading of negative criteria, if we kept the apartments vacant, this would be a permitted use. We don't have the full buffering, but this use, this property does abut a residential use. That resident does have a substantial privet hedge there that, while it's not on our property, it clearly is a good demarcation for the end of the commercial zone. Although, as you know, commercial uses do extend on the other side of the street, further down the side street. We have stormwater improvements that are going to be handled. Again, under the negative criteria, the master plan likes restaurants and likes mixed uses. I'll go global for a moment. Your parking is an issue. This property is never going to have code compliant parking. That's the way it is. But this is a use that has off-peak hours. It's a use where patrons are, in my opinion, inclined to walk further than with other types of uses, like a dry cleaning use. You tend not to pick up your 6 shirts and walk 2 blocks with them, but you will walk 2 blocks to go to a restaurant. So that with the evidence that Mr. Steiger discovered in terms of the availability during the later hours of the day, the fact that we're not in the very core of the business district, in my opinion, this application can be approved without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantial impairment to the zone plan and zoning ordinance. So I think we fully meet the statutory criteria even under the Medici decision.
Thanks.
Quick question, Mr. Steck. Do we need to add to the list of variances, the 15-foot buffer and the 20% open space that currently are sitting on the books?
A separate variance, because we're arguing this under Medici, that this is a use that's not permitted, and these other issues, I think, are subsumed into the use variance.
Okay.
So they are relevant to consider them, but I don't think they're a technical variance request that's separate from the use variance. And the issue of the backing out is a design standard in the ordinance as opposed to a zoning standard. But Mr. Steiger addressed that.
Right, but that is...
It is an item of proof
right.
that is needed, an item of relief that's needed. You're correct.
Right.
By the way, my new hearing aids are pretty good. Thanks for asking.
Does anyone from the board have questions for our planner?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether this would be more appropriate for Mr. Steck or I think of you, your architect, but have you had an opportunity, we've got a report from our engineering department dated June 12th. There's a number, have you had an opportunity
I have an opportunity to read, but I think the architect...
it would be better able to answer that? Oh, that's fine.
Who's next?
Okay. Because, it's a detailed report, so I just wanted to make sure that...
I would rather you grill him than me.
Good. I'll grill anybody who's willing to be grilled. I don't have any other questions.
If the board doesn't have any other questions of the planner, it's getting to be routine, but I would entertain if anyone from the public has a question of the planner on this testimony that he's presented this evening. And I would say the planner is excused with disappointment for not telling us that people are all going to be riding bicycles and walking miles and miles.
They won't.
Is there a permission, Mr. Chairman? I will call my architect.
Okay. Before your architect comes up, I notice it's 9:25. If you're here, for the last application, which is the Starbucks application, Counselor, could we talk for a short second?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman.
It does not appear, we have two more applications that we are going to be hearing this evening, and it does not appear that we are going to get to the Starbucks application.
I've been watching the clock intently. I know you have two other applications yet to go this evening, even at a half an hour a pop. We're not going to see anything till 10:30, quarter of 11, and I know you don't like to take new applications that late, let alone testimony after 11. So I think probably the best I'd do would be able to get out an opening statement, and you don't want to listen to me twice. So having said that, I think that it would be the wiser thing to carry this matter so that this applicant can present a more cohesive presentation, starting and getting some substantive work done at the next meeting on July 11th. So far, I see only one carryover ahead of us, and I'm hopeful that you'll dispose of these applications so they don't come off carryover either. Before we do anything, I just need to confirm that the board has accepted our jurisdictional facts so that you have the authority to adjourn us.
That is, yes.
Yeah, notice has been submitted, certification of notice, publication in the Star Ledger on June 2nd. So,
Mr. Duesenberg, for the record, you also have confirmed, based on our conversations, the jurisdiction of this board, correct?
Yes, in terms of the overall approach, yes. We recognize that this is a piece of property with multiple principal uses. These uses have existed probably back since when I was a kid. I remember the White Castle on the corner and the Claremont Diner, so that dates me a bit. We have multiple uses. One of those uses is the Acura dealership that is a non-conforming use. So we are looking at, we've tailored this application as 2D3 exceptions to what now has been a permitted use, multiple uses, because of the extended town center zone. So in creating that ordinance and applying it to this part of town, the governing body has kind of given some relief to applicants because we don't have to worry about having multiple uses. And in this case, this is just simply, in a very simplistic way, the substitution of one permitted use for another, right? And, you know, it's the worst kept secret in town. It is a Starbucks that's being proposed for the Chase Bank building, which, by the way, was built in 1987. That's how far back that building goes. So it's going to be a Starbucks, and it is coming with a new traffic light at the corner of Claremont and Pompton. And if anybody looks over there, you'll see the footings for those stanchions are in, waiting for a glare. So having said all that, I'm sorry to take up your time, and I'd ask that you make the announcement that the matter is carried to July 11th.
With the applicant's consent?
Yes, with the applicant's consent.
Mr. Chairman, this matter, the application 2024-10, 30 Pompton Avenue, as Mr. Duesenberg just suggested, application on behalf of Starbucks, that you will be presenting on behalf of Starbucks, is adjourned until the July 11th meeting. If there's anyone here that was here to participate in that meeting, they are free to go. There will be no new notice. So the notice is this evening, July 11th, 8 p.m., this room.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening. Take care. Nice job.
Okay. You're going to stand there and get seats and swear in. Yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem.
Good evening.
Good evening. You raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you state your name and your business address for the record, please?
Sure, it's Joseph. Can I take this off? Is that a little bit better? Better. My name is Joseph Haynes with the firm of Dasta Haynes Architects, located at 74 East Passaic Avenue in Nutley, New Jersey. And would you like to back in?
Sure.
For the record? Sure.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing Mr. Haynes.
I've been before this board a while ago, but I went to New Jersey Institute of Technology.
He's good.
Is your license in effect?
Yes, it is.
I would
testified
offer
in front of this
residential.
board a while ago, Cedar Grove, Nutley, all the surrounding towns.
You're not new to this rodeo.
Thank you. I'm going to start off, keep it simple, because we heard a lot of testimony tonight already. And I'm pretty much familiar with the building, but I'm going to just start off with the interior of the building, and then we'll go to the site plan afterwards, because I think that's where most of the questions are going to be generated. On the first floor, what's proposed is a restaurant. We have 46 seats. We have 16 on the bar side and 30 on the dining side. We're proposing 2 new bathrooms, unisex bathrooms, one being handicap. In the back left-hand corner, there's a service station. In the back in the middle, and there's a full kitchen on the back right-hand side. Down in the basement, we're proposing a walk-in box and storage. It's a full basement underneath. And up on the second floor exist 2 existing 2-bedroom units. You walk up a stair in the middle, and there's a unit on the left-hand side and a unit on the right-hand side. As far as the site plan, what we're proposing on doing is that there's a green patch currently exists out there, possibly depending on how they park. Sometimes they park tandem, but probably is typically like 3 to 4 parking spaces. 3, I would say 3 on the one side of the green area closest to the building, and 1 on the far end of the property towards the end that has its own driveway. He came in, typically 1 parking spot, maybe 2 if you tandem park there. What we're proposing is to pave the grass area to increase the parking spaces. We tried to maximize the amount of parking that we could on the back of the property. Because the amount of parking spots that we needed, we felt it was necessary to maximize parking. We left the driveway aprons the way they exist currently. Again, try to maximize parking. Parking space number 1, you would just come in, you would park, a little bit tight. There was talk about being able to back out onto Rockland Terrace. My thought process was that they would back up a little bit and then make the turn, go down, and be able to come out that far apron at the end of the property. That was a rationale for keeping that spot. Also, the other rationale for keeping that apron, the other rationale for keeping that apron was that if someone pulled into the lot and there was not any parking spots available, even though you probably could see them, but if someone did not see them, they would be able to pull through and pull back out without stopping and trying backing out onto Rockland. So that was the other rationale for keeping that. Part of our revisions during looking at Boswell Engineering's report is that we did revise the drawings to include a little bit of landscape buffer where the grass area is being proposed. So it sort of separates the sidewalk from the proposed additional parking area, and also where there is no depressed curb. Within that planting area, we're proposing low shrubs no higher than 24 to 30 inches, so that if you were in a car, you'd be able to see over the top of them, but gave a little bit of buffer and safety between the sidewalk and the proposed parking. That's about it for the site. We did add 2 light poles to provide lighting for the parking lot, and we provided a minimum of 1 foot candle on the property.
Is the lighting directed away from the residential section?
We put shields on them, so on the Parkside side where they have their outdoor dining, no lighting would go into there. And on the residential side, you have this driveway along the side, and there's a heavily bushed on that side. So 1 foot candle came around to that, and I just cut it off because it was like wall. And then 25 came around, so it's pretty much shielded by that, by the shrubs on that side.
We just can't rely on the adjacent property to maintain the shrubs. If somebody new comes along.
Correct, and takes it out.
So-
And I don't know whose property it's on, I think it's right on the property line. I think it's shared shrubs.
Say that 3 times fast.
If I may. Mr. Haynes, before the board, I just want to put on the record, you have had a chance to review the June 12th, 2024 Boswell Engineering Report?
Yes, I have.
Is there anything in that report, any of the recommendations or comments that you do not feel we can comply with?
I think there was a few items in the report that, towards the end of the report, that they said we should address. The first one being item number 7, which just talks about the new impervious surface, and that that we're putting a seepage pit in, and that it met the requirements for the additional stormwater that we're creating, the impervious surface that we're creating. I don't know if there's anything else on that item I need to do. Just had a minimum, talk something about revise accordingly, just the square footage number was a little bit different.
Right. Those are just items that you have to address before we can approve the plan, if this board approves it.
Okay.
So, Mayor, may I lead him through this?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to hear about the seepage pit, because it seems like they're 3 or 4 times the size you need.
The one we proposed?
Yeah.
We proposed one seepage pit. The size of the seepage pit is 8-foot diameter by 4 foot deep, and it has stone around it, 2 foot on the bottom. I think it's 2 foot on the sides. We calculated it to be about the approximate size that's needed based on your code.
Okay. Because just looking at it, it looked like you had gone overboard, so to speak, based on what you need to cover, and the fact that you included the rock around it and the 2 feet underneath it. You were up in the...
I thought we calculated it right.
Yeah.
Well, you probably calculated it correctly. You just...
Mr. Chairman, according to number 7 of our report, they required to have 362 cubic feet, or they have 362 and they're required to have 314. So it's not much over.
Correct, right. And I have 303 on my drawing, is 362, so.
50. Good. We're good with that.
I think if you go to...
Item 12 was about trees, there are no trees on the property, we're not removing any
I
trees.
think our concerns is starting number 28 on page 5. If you want to address some of those items about reducing the curb cut, and those are the items 12 through 36, 37, or 28 to 36.
Okay, so 28 talked about reducing the curb cut down to 30 feet. So what was being requested was that from the existing curb cut, the curb cut right now runs, let's just say from where our new paving area is, going south, a little bit past where the building is. So right by the 1 story, which goes from a 1-story to a 2-story building. We were leaving it the way it was in order to make sure we can get his parking spot number 1. If we reduced it down to 30 feet, we would lose parking spot number 1, which I think is part of number 29. So if we would do that, we would reduce 1 parking spot and ask for 1 more spot as a variance. Our proposal right now is to leave the curb cut the way it is. I think 30 I addressed already, but we can, of course, provide species and size, planting size and mature size as required. Number 35, we do specify the lights. It's in the legend, symbol legend, L1, it talks about the type of light fixture that it is. It has a shield and it's mounted 15 feet high on a pole. We did light traces on here. Like I said, I cut the light traces off at the shrubs because there must be at least 12 feet high, the shrubs, and acted like a wall so that the light would not go through them. They're very dense. But if we were, 100 stays on our property, 105 will go off our property onto his driveway a little bit.
Okay, the way I read the recommended light fixture, you're going to have a color temperature of 4,000.
Correct.
We recommend it be 3,000 because you're adjacent to a residential property. The color temperature, it's less harsh
for that.
We accept that.
Okay, thank you.
And we talked about number 36. And then number 37 is the dumpster, which I failed to mention. But was discussed previously, we are proposing a dumpster directly behind our building by the stairwell that goes down to the basement, the exterior stairwell that goes down to the basement. We do not propose currently any screening around it, but we would gladly put like a fence enclosure around it. We're trying to do like a 6 cubic yard dumpster, so it's not a very large dumpster that we've picked up at least 3 times a week, as discussed by the owners. But we would do a 6-foot high screened, a fence screened enclosure. We don't have much room to do more than that.
And on the revised plans, you put a detail for that?
Yes, sir.
And then could you address the question I had before, ADA accessibility to the building and how that parking space is supposed to be utilized?
Right, I think that's a great suggestion that you recommended, that from the hashed area next to the handicap space, that we would have a hashed walkway, possibly 4 feet wide, that will go from that hashed area next adjacent to the handicap spot out to the sidewalk.
And can they get in the front door? ADA
There is a step into the front door, so they would have to ask for help in accessibility and probably bring out a temporary ramp, help into the building.
Okay. Has he addressed my open issues, so the board can ask questions?
There was one that I thought I heard that he said you're not willing to do, is it 28 or?
Well, the question the board has to decide is, to me, what do we want to do with the open curb cut?
Okay.
Do we want to leave it the way he's suggesting, or do you want to make it more defined with a defined open? The board has to make that decision how they want to. He's proposing to leave it. We had suggested he have a more defined opening. It's a tight site, so, how people operate here.
Can I jump in on that too?
Sure.
I have a question that's actually related to your occupant count, which might then impact your parking count. So right now, there's 46 occupants expected at this, right? Which does not include staff, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the maximum occupancy of this space is going to be 46. Just based on what I see here, this could be calculated very differently, right? So you could do 7 square feet per occupant, right, and get a very different load.
Correct.
So the trigger for a couple things is 50, right? 50 and above requires a couple different things that you have to do to the building, but then also obviously impacts your parking count. So can you absolutely testify to the fact that this will not exceed 46?
Correct. 50 is the maximum occupancy we have on the first floor. Correct.
Okay. The reason why I bring that up is because just in plan, it looks like you can fit a lot more tables in here.
That is correct, but because of the number of exits, the building's not sprinkled, the building code is going to require a maximum of 50 occupancy.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask our engineer just to clarify the back and forth here between, I'm looking at the 28 and 29 specifically here. Are you basically saying that if we took space number 1 out, is your recommendation basically saying you think it would make the access and egress from the parking lot better if we had a smaller number of spaces there?
If we had a defined curb, full curb through there, it would be more traditional parking lot and probably serve better for drainage.
Okay, so
stuff like
the
that.
reason why I'm bringing that up is they're so deficient in parking spaces anyway. If 7 would be a better input and output as opposed to 8, just to, get you a little bit less deficient, I would maybe follow up on your recommendation that I would rather see a more accessible parking lot with 7 spaces where we wouldn't have to, because we talked about this before, that 8th space being difficult to get in and out of. I don't know how the other board members feel about that, but, going from 8 to 7, if it makes things a little bit more safe.
Yeah, and I've been wrestling with that for some time. And obviously, if we're it's not this condition, we're looking at precedent for other areas. We talked about season, walk and Uber, and a lot of that's also, seasonally dependent, but if you talk about Uber, there's, food pickups, there's people drop-offs, and then, the discussion about food deliveries and everything else, or logistical deliveries in that fashion. I mean, that is kind of a part of Bloomfield where we start to see what I would say is people warming up their tires for the Bloomfield 500 from there forward, right, going into Caldwell. We're not going to get 29 spaces in that lot. There's nothing we can do. Let's start building a multi-story garage back there. Kind of going with your question and a little bit of the previous question, then, making the best use of that lot, I would almost want to see a little bit more ADA compliance back there, with potentially maybe even 2 spots, securing the parking for the residents, and then more mobility through that lot so that we're taking trucks off, right? Taking trucks off of either Bloomfield or that side road, because if you put a truck on that side road, it's going to close it down. I don't know. I'm just trying to look at the movement in that corridor. And since we're not going to do anything with that lot, then make it the most usable lot for the purpose case, which is, and again, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know Parkside Social's Uber Eats conditions, but, I know people pick up and drop off, especially if we're talking about a family establishment. I know food gets picked up and dropped off, and then deliveries on Bloomfield. I'm sure that every restaurant has said they're going to, use lot 2 to pick, service their restaurants, but I can't tell you how many trucks I see parked on Bloomfield. So
I think you're basically agreeing with me if I.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, but according to
making it a safer lot as opposed to just trying to jam as many spaces in there.
yeah, recommendations 29 and 33 were taking off spots 1 and 8.
Yeah.
And I would just say then just go down. Let's just go down to 6, but make it 2 ADA compliant spots and 4 residential spots, because we're not. I mean, if we're going to move forward with this. Then doing what's in the best interest of the community at large, which is taking drive-through traffic or, temporary traffic off the road, securing the residences and securing ADA parking.
Being deficient with 19 versus 17 is sort of, not really, I don't know, solving the problem. I would rather see a safer lot. That's all.
I'm not as concerned about space 8 as I am about space 1. So space 1 is where the deliveries are, and it's going to be jammed up by the ADA space.
Absolutely.
I think space 1 is problematic. Space 8, we can, can be left in if you want.
Mr. Svelli, I mean, if what I'm hearing, and if, again, the board were inclined, would you consent to reconfigure the lot, make it 7 spaces?
I've spoken to my client, it's not a problem if the board sees fit. We need a variance again, but we have no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, to
We've
your
heard the
point,
board.
this is something that I've seen a lot lately is, Uber Eats is such a big part of business models right now. There's even dedicated space inside the restaurants now. And that pickup and drop off is a really big issue.
So,
especially when you have a fire hydrant right in front of this thing, which is not shown in the plan, but.
So would the board want 7 plus a flex space, or would the board want 6 plus the flex space to make the lot more accessible?
I think it's 7.
I would just be more in agreement with my colleague in terms of just making that a more movement-friendly lot. And, again, securing the ADA spots, securing the residential spots, and or, if it's not being leased out to the tenants or secured for the tenants, then at least something where we're not imposing those threats onto, either Bloomfield or side road, where that side road does not sustain, temporary traffic. That's at least, my position on this.
Can I ask another question? Is there an ability for tandem spots and not for restaurant customers? And I know tandem spots are frowned upon generally, but if they're a tenant, I know in condominiums in Verona, we allow that because the tenant knows coming in the tandem, would there be possible to add spots to allow tandem parking?
Not you're gonna have it curved cut across the whole,
Okay.
like,
I mean, I just,
across the whole parking lot. That's the only way to do that.
which,
Which exists
Good try.
for majority of it already. So if we left it the way it was, we could have need to basically, here we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the handicap would be 7, so you're not really gaining.
It sounds like the applicant is willing to get rid of spot number 1 and go down to 7 spaces. We don't, do we need to require 2 ADA spaces? That's going above the limit?
They're compliant with one.
Compliant with one.
Because it's based on the number of
So let's,
parking spaces in the lot.
I have a logistic question too about the dumpster. How is that being dumped? Is that a truck?
Yeah, they would just roll it out and then pick it up with a truck.
Okay, so that's not going to impact that space that's proposed there.
It would not. It would be off hours, they would roll the dumpster out, turn it, pick it up, put it back in the spot.
Yeah, I mean, again, just to codify my remarks, the reason I brought up the 288 spots is how many parking spots does Parkside Social have now? Okay, and we're talking about this as being a potentially quote unquote, yes, no, maybe joint venture, not joint venture type thing. So it's the duality of this whole premise that, if we want to be, a better Verona, then at least, servicing, all the residents of it. That's the only reason I brought that up, just to kind of qualify my remarks. I understand that it's not a requirement. So apologies for that.
there's always the possibility to ask the council to add a handicap spot on Bluefield Avenue. I don't know whether, I'm sure if I'm the restaurant owner, I might be adverse to that, but that certainly is a possibility as well.
and for the record, we're only looking at the property on the corner. We're not considering Parkside as part of this application. So there's lots of opportunities for you people to make some changes in the neighborhood, but it sounds like we're looking at a reasonable agreement that we increase the number of variance parking spaces you need by 1, remove parking space number 1. I assume you'll know what to do with the parking spaces that are left. One of them has to be ADA, and based on how you get along with your tenants, the other spaces can be reserved or not for them.
Another question that I don't know the answer, Mr. Cifelli, you might, we're technically creating new spots. Is there, and for them are residential, is there an EV requirement?
I think we can close the rehabilitation and ignore that.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I would think that would just severely handicap this spot that's already challenged.
Good.
I think we can call it, ignore that. There's a provision that you don't have to do it.
Right.
The question I have is one other question on residential parking. Are we designating any spots for residential parking? Because there's going to be an overlap for the evening people and the residents coming home at night.
We'll check.
Be up to the owner.
The thought process is 1 for each apartment would be designated.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, essentially what we're asking him is just to accept the recommendations from our engineer that's in 28 and 29.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that covers the
We
chase.
will- At this point, should we request that the residential parking be spots the way it's labeled 7 and 8 at the far end? Does it matter? I mean, I'm
That
just
doesn't-
thinking, there's concern about space 8. There's not a lot of movement if you park there for a resident as opposed to a patron.
And they get used to parking in that spot, and be able to handle it. That makes sense.
We have no problem with that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Actually, there'll be, because I'm writing, it would be new numbers. 7, 6 and 7.
6 and 7.
Eight spaces, 6 and 7.
Eight is gone.
Right.
Wait, just to clarify the map here, I'm looking at the parking calculations on the front. 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. Is that right?
No.
2 per.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we got that.
Yeah, two dwelling units times 2 required.
Right. So it's 4,
Right.
not 5. It says 5 there.
Where's it say?
The total parking space is 4. Because we had 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit plus a 0.5 space for guest parking.
Okay.
So we have required 4 for the 2 apartments.
Right, so then can you designate just 2?
Yeah, the designation, that's really that's an ownership matter, but as a condition, we will say that they have to designate 2. Again, assuming it gets approved.
And the only question is, based on your recommendation, we're going to request that it be a full curb cut except for the entrance spots, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Just clarify that again?
From what I understand, we're going to request that except for where the double hours are, in and out.
Yes.
Have a proper depressed curb there. The rest of it, we're going to, all that depressed curb up to that point will be full curb.
So approximately 30 feet as discussed in the.
Right, that's in your 29 recommendations.
Yeah, correct.
We're asking them to accept that, yeah.
That is correct.
Okay.
So there's just one egress and egress?
Well, I'm okay with leaving that one at the far end, just as an outlet. That makes sense.
So that's your curb cut over there.
Yes.
I have 2 other questions for you.
Yes.
One is related to air conditioning. Any rooftop units or window units?
Rooftop units. They're going to be up on top of the flat roof above the units.
Any parapets or anything up there?
There are very little parapets up there, very small, really centered towards the building, so you wouldn't see them coming down Brookfield Avenue at all.
Okay.
Are you getting air down to the?
I'm sorry, I think that's that. I think there's another project. We did split systems for the
New rest,
for the new restaurant, where the units are down in the basement. I was thinking of another project, where the units are down in the basement and there's 2 condensers in the back. So we have 2 condensers in the back for the HVAC units for the restaurant, and then we have a condenser for the walk-in in the back, surrounded by bollards. Exactly.
Okay. And my other question is about hazard changes. So this was a dry clean facility, right?
Yes.
That is switching over to a mixed use. Can you talk about some of the environmental impact studies, anything?
The owner might be a better person to speak about that, because I did not get involved at all on the environmental side of it.
If I may, Commissioner, I know a little about this. The environmental issues were addressed at the time of the purchase. So there was, whatever was required was done so that we could take over.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the HVAC. Right now, I see you have kitchen exhaust coming out at ground height.
On the back side of the building.
Yeah. Are you putting in a precipitator? Because right now you're pushing grease, it's going to come out, go right up onto that deck and onto the walkway of the parking
Yes,
lot.
the control room, correct.
So you will have a precipitator?
Yes.
Precipitator is a grease bomb, eats grease. So that this way, when it comes out, you're getting a cleaner air and
Is there?
That's what we're proposing right now. The other way that we're going to take a look at is possibly going up through the roof, up against the building as the other way of coming out. But right now, we have a proposed coming out the back.
Right.
And we would have to control the grease by balcony in the back. Correct.
And there's a grease trap here somewhere, or does that?
That's separate, yeah. Grease trap is for sanitary.
Yeah.
It's located in the basement.
Okay.
this is for air. Because the smell that'll come out of a restaurant, if you have a precipitator, that'll clean up that.
So if they choose to do the roof, is that okay with the board, or is that, again, I think with,
Well, with that, I'm assuming you're coming in about, what, 3 or 4 feet up above the roof, gooseneck,
Correct.
towards the
Along
center,
the back of the building, it will go up.
10 feet away from any intakes.
Right. Of course.
because you either read
We'll meet all
before you
codes.
came, or you know you're stuck. So it's either one is my point?
Either one's, yeah.
Either one is fine?
Yeah. But like where it is right now, it has to be a precip.
I'd probably prefer it sidewall, otherwise you're going to come up on your rooftop terrace there.
Well, if you put it towards the middle with the weight of the grease, the weight of that it's coming, you come with a different level.
How we doing? Questions? Anyone else have a question of our architect? I think you got the most questions. Is there anyone from the public that would like to ask our architect a question on the testimony he's presented this evening? Seeing none? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Haynes. Counselor, turn it back to you.
That's our testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I would open the floor now to anyone from the public who would like to make a statement about this application. This is it, Mr. Allen.
John Smith again, 12 Rockland Terrace in Verona, New Jersey. The parking spaces, question I have is, last time when we came here in 2016, when the Duarte's looked for the variance to put the patio on the back, they got a 17-spot variance, and we had requested, I guess maybe it was a trade-off with the variance, what we asked to have done. How it works, I don't know. But, there was a lot of things that they had restrictions on, no outdoor dining was allowed, like everybody off the patio by 10:30, no music, no bands, no TV. I know right now the property isn't, from what I understand, speaking to Matt, geared for that, because it's going to be a parking lot in the back. But the apartments above it, down the road, they decide to do away with the apartments and extend the dining up there. They have a rooftop, which has a deck, because the door comes out of each apartment onto a rooftop deck. That I would like to see if the same restrictions that were on, that's on the other part of the building for the patio is carried over with no live bands, no music, no TVs, no outdoor dining.
They would have to come back to us for a variance.
Okay, so that was brought up. Okay. And would it be the same thing about the patio, since it is a Mexican theme, Cinco de Mayo, putting a tent up, having, something going on for a week?
There's only a parking lot in the back, right, John?
Right now, yes.
Right, so the back is only, the permitted use in the back is only parking, that would be an expansion. Now, again, without looking, for sidewalk dining and things like that are permitted in the front.
Yeah, no, the front, he had talked to me about doing like, was it having a bistro open in the door?
In the front, right, perhaps.
So you could get the breeze in.
Right.
That's
Right, but the back would be, the back dining would be really expanding the number of tables, therefore needing more parking, therefore needing a variance, so.
But even if it's for, just to set up a tent for a week.
Well, I mean,
Like I said, if you have a Cinco de Mayo, I live, my property, you could basically, sorry to phrase it this way, spit from my driveway.
Right.
And hit.
Well, they'll put you in a hotel for a week and you'll be.
No problem, if I can pick it, I have no problem, I love New York so much.
Okay.
The engineer was saying, I think the hedges split the property line. Can I send him half the bill now? Because we keep cutting every time I get him cut. But the other thing is the enclosure, the garbage. I had asked Matt, I guess he had asked them to move the dumpster there. But presently, they have another dumpster. The dumpster for the other restaurant is on Mavis's property. And it's right by my patio. Here again, I could throw a soda can into the dumpster from standing on my patio. The problem had been, prior to them owning it, the Duarte's, they tried to handle it. They've been very good. I called over there. Gabby, the manager, addressed it, putting the covers down, putting the garbage in bags, tying it up. But is that dumpster still going to be there plus the one by the building?
Yeah.
I would like to see that one removed, which means it might need more pickup than 1 to 3 times a week. I hope they do a tremendous business, which would require that. Like, I'm not against the restaurant being there by any means. It's just, I don't want to, like, you get rid of that dumpster.
This board does not have jurisdiction to dictate what the property owner, what they can do, what they must do on another property. That arguably would be arbitrary,
But it's not
capricious.
the property where the other dumpster is.
Well,
It's on Mavis.
but it's their establishment. If they wanted to agree with that, they could, and we could include it as a condition, but we really can't broach that topic with them because it's not part of this application. As much as this application is a little bit unusual because of, the opening and the shared professional staff. But let's.
And just to go back, I'm not against, I know, like, it's been mentioned by many people, the parking spaces. I know the fellow did his whole study, but it also, what he says is available, it could be needed by 5 other restaurants that are in that same walking distance. But the Parkside got 17, they're looking for 27. That's going to be like 44 spot variance between the 2 establishments, and there's really only parking on one side of my street. You got meters on the other. I understand, but I'm just, in case I have an issue down the road with people parking, I just wanted to.
If they're parking illegally, then you have a problem.
Yeah, I know,
Right.
it's a problem everywhere, but this way, at least, somebody had said, if you don't voice your opinion now, then you're sort of, why didn't you say something when it came up? So, I'm not against it, I just want to be on record that I'm concerned, and whatever they can do, and I know they're working hard to try to do it, I'm not trying to say not to give it to them, but I just would like to know, like I said, if that other dumpster could be removed, go with the one dumpster further away. And the only other thing I'd ask, and I think I mentioned it to Matt, the hedges, people back up there, they have deliveries that back up already and hit the hedges. And I'm concerned about once there's more people there, because it's a restaurant, there's already debris that comes through the hedges or gets trapped in the hedges, paper, plastic, all of this stuff. Can a fence be put up? It doesn't have to be, 6-foot fence, just a 4-foot fence maybe to stop any debris. It'll stay on that side on the asphalt, which could be cleaned up easier. And also, if a person sees the fence there backing in, if they're going to have deliveries in that spot, or I don't know whether deliveries are going to come with trucks, but it might curtail, people from hitting the hedges.
That would be a question for Mr. Tenkate.
Are we talking about the far end of the parking lot?
Yes, where my property is, because my property is the first house there, in the back of the new property they have, the back of the restaurant they presently have, and probably 3/4 of Mavis's back property, caught up to my property line, along the whole back. My property, their property runs like here, here, and here, and my property runs this way.
We call it the Galifian Estate.
Yeah.
Other people call it the Ponderosa.
I have no objection to it. I think it'd be probably a good idea.
Mr. Savelli?
Frankly, I have no problem with it.
Okay.
And I don't, like I said, I don't know, with the dumpster.
Okay.
The other one to be removed. And other than that.
So the fence, so the applicant, if it were approved, would agree to a 6-foot high fence? Mr. Gliffy, 6 feet?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, 6 feet would be fine, 4 feet, 6 feet, just, I think something to keep the debris from coming over.
Okay.
And if there's something there, the truck backs up there, because that's presently where they're backing up into that area. Rather than 4 foot.
4 feet?
Yeah, that's
Okay. All right.
Perfect.
Okay. That's
Thank
all
you,
I
Mr.
have.
Blues. We appreciate it. We appreciate your patience for waiting 3 months for that. He's one of our favorite meeting attendees.
Yeah.
We'll miss seeing him.
Yeah.
Season ticket holder.
That's it. Okay, is there anyone else from the public that would like to make a statement on this application? Seeing none. I would move to board deliberation. Counselor, you're good with that? We're going to move to board deliberation on this matter?
Time at this hour, yes, I am.
Yes.
I'll rest on my opening.
Okay. How about some senses? We seem to have I think, agreed or come to some conclusions on parking, which was the biggest, I believe, hurdle for this particular application. But just to review, it's a use variance, putting a restaurant in here. I don't think anybody voiced any concerns with that particular variance. Stormwater management is required. We've added added to the variance for parking by saying a total of 27 are required and 7 are proposed.
Now we're at 20.
So we're looking at a variance for 20. We talked about conditions. We're going to leave the driveway, the northern driveway. We were going to include ADA walkway to the sidewalk. We were going to eliminate space number 1 according to the Boswell 2829 engineering report. And have the full curb so that just the driveway part is available. Fence in the back.
Does that make sense to you? To have the curb mimic just the ingress and egress? So that kind of negates the opportunity to have space 1 be a flex space.
What would that flex space be for?
And things like Uber Eats and
They're not going to park there.
that kind of stuff.
Walk around.
Well, but we could designate it. Right, yeah,
just not
they'll park in front of the fire hydrant. But at least we could designate it a flex space. I mean, we could put up a sign that says, pick up.
2 minute,
You know.
2 minute parking.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The other condition was
Yeah,
the
I get what you're saying.
adjacent dumpster, shall we say? What was that?
No,
That
I
wasn't-
just want to get a handle, you're going to have one dumpster or?
Right now, they have two. Right. The gentleman asked if there was one. I think that would have to, we feel that would have to wait to see how
If it could be done?
Okay.
Yeah, how it works.
I might just want to check the resolution for putting the backyard into Ariane's kitchen to see if there was a stipulation in there as to where the dumpster should go.
Well, that may be, but again,
Okay.
we moved the
Right.
dumpster.
No promise on that then, but, right, okay.
The other one was color temperature for the lighting would be 3,000.
3,000, not 4. Did anybody recollect anything else?
That the maximum occupancy is 46.
So can I just ask, so if they wanted to do anything like with music, TVs, any, that would require them to get a,
Yes and no, I mean, but just like, John, just like your other next door neighbor, right, has a right to have music outside, as long as it follows the code.
no, what I'm saying is because for the workplace to get the variance to put the patio there, the variance with the spots, that was part of the,
Well,
was in the
I mean,
minutes that they can't have that.
Well-
And it was stipulated.
okay, as you heard the chairman say, the issue really here was not about the restaurant. The restaurant, and as Mr. Steck testified, the restaurant standing by itself would be permitted, okay? So it would be arbitrary or unreasonable for this board now to put restaurant restrictions on the restaurant, because the board has, I think, believed that, although the board hasn't voted yet, that this isn't about the restaurant, it was really about the parking, I think is what the testimony, and the board understood that testimony.
And
So-
the approval was that this site plan
Right.
doesn't show a patio or anything.
Right, this site plan does not show a patio,
Yeah.
okay? So if they wanted to incorporate a patio, they'd have to come back, and they would have to then sacrifice parking. So-
And just to be clear, did the council redacted the outdoor dining, COVID outdoor dining? That's done now, yes?
That I don't know.
I believe it's done.
the COVID episode.
I just want to clarify something. The maximum occupancy, as the commissioner discussed, is 50, even though we're only doing this.
Right. You have tables for 46, seats for 46.
Did you mention the 2 designated spots for residents?
Oh, that's right.
6 and 7.
6 and 7 would be resident spot, reserved for residents.
And the fence?
And the fence, 4 feet.
Can we make that like not a vinyl fence?
Something nice.
Something nice and tasteful?
We like
Perfect.
and wood people.
Perfect.
Put it in. 4-foot wooden fence.
7 and below.
And anyone else have any additions to this, what we're formulating here, an approval resolution, I believe? Or a motion? No one has anything else to add to it? Everybody satisfied?
No, I do want to add, if they go with a side wall kitchen exhaust, that they must have a precipitator.
Oh, that's right.
What would that?
Precipitator or some air quality treatment.
Yeah.
So it'll make everything be better. We good?
And I know that you mentioned it, but the enclosure around the dumpster.
Bollards, right, that was part of the testimony.
Yeah,
Right.
that was part of the testimony.
Right, not a condition, but that was part of the plan.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't think there was anything around the dumpster. That should be a condition, right?
No, I'm sorry. The,
Architect stated they were putting an
an
enclosure.
enclosure, yes.
How about no stuccoing, no siding, just beautiful brick?
You guys like wood, you're going to stick with the brick and not do anything crazy, right?
As repair, as fixing as required.
All right, well, think about it. Some people might not go there if that turns out that way. Everybody heard from? If everyone was heard from, then I would entertain a motion to approve this application, whose number I seem to have lost, approve this application number 2024-02 with the conditions mentioned and listed that we've discussed in the last 5 minutes.
So moved. I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the application with all those conditions.
Thank you. Do we have this?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote?
Dr. Reese?
Can I say a few things? Or do you just-
Before you vote, you can say why you're voting.
I'm kind of conflicted on this application. I think that we need another restaurant. It would be it's very nice. I have no problem with the mixed use issue, but I do have a problem with parking. And I'm going to just say a few things to the owner, that I would hope that he would think in terms of the neighbors. I'm not completely convinced that people walk to a restaurant and are happy to walk long distances to a restaurant, or that people always take an Uber. And I think that people come and park. And I think that your responsibility is to the people who are in the neighborhood. If I had a car every night parked in front of my house from 4 o'clock until 11 o'clock, I wouldn't be particularly happy. So I think that one of the things that you might have to do in the future is to reach out to see if you can provide parking spaces other than on your property for the people who are coming to your restaurant. That will provide some kind of, it won't bother the people in the neighborhood. I think about people who live on Rockland Terrace, people who live on Grove, people who live on Personette, people who live on Fairview. Those streets, I think, are going to be affected buy the parking that's necessary for your restaurant. So those are my thoughts, but I will vote yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something real quick in response to that? I commend the applicants for trying to reach out to some other entities to try to see if you can overlap parking. I actually don't know that there's huge parking shortage in Verona, but there definitely is a sharing, quite frankly, just a sharing issue.
Madam Secretary, can we continue the roll call vote?
Mrs. Murphy Braddix,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
I'll echo, before I vote, I will echo some of Dr. Reese's concerns. I stated them, in the beginning, but, the overwhelming desire just to get something in the Bloomfield area corridor, I think, has overwhelmed my concerns. And just for the point of information, the town has recently purchased a lot on Lakeside Avenue, formerly owned by the church there, so Our Lady of the Lake. So from what I understand, preliminarily, they do plan on making that a parking lot for the town. So that may be another thing that might alleviate some of our concerns. I think preliminarily, they're looking to move the permit spots to that parking lot. So that would free up possibly some additional slots in the parking municipal lots that's closer to the restaurant. I know it's not a done deal, but having said that, I will vote yes to approve it.
Mr. Mathewson,
Yes.
Mr. Cortez,
Yes.
Chairman McGinley.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, she made the motion.
We're going to let the rest of these people vote over here.
Okay. Mrs. DeBartolo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Weston,
Yes.
We're good.
I'm new to this
That's
board,
seven.
so I'm not sure who the alternates are and who the regulars are.
Hey, everybody's new to the board. We're not sure. More for the name tags. Okay. By my count, Mr. Cifelli, that vote passed with 5 because it was a D variance. So you're in good shape to proceed with your project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the board for your attention. I know it's late, so thank you very much.
It's only going to get later. We appreciate it. Okay, I've had more requests for a 4-minute break. Can we be back here at 10:25? Take a 4-minute break to help everybody who's been sitting.
They tailor them to meet the needs of
they want to resolve things about just make
But then they always have they would have to negotiate.
I mean, if let's say Forest, or let's say Rock. I know you can carve them. I understand that it's a public street. We move into these neighborhoods, we're not expected to have cars.
Well, you know what's going to happen though, so people may get separated.
And that's
That's the risk of their activity.
yeah. So we're also yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do, some of my classes were remote, my classes. Oh, yeah. Primarily when we don't count.
But if sometimes not strong, and you're really well, that's gonna change, right?
You're 27?
Well, they were due like 2 or 6 or something.
So that
You're looking at 7 months. Well, just let me know.
well, you these have.
Because I don't want
That's funny, I have a bag of these.
I remember to go to the day.
Some of them say
It's very close to the house.
Thank you. We will what do we do? Reconvene. We're going to, yeah, that's it. Boy, it's getting, we are going to reconvene at 10:28. And we will take the second application of the evening, which is 68 Forest Avenue. And if you would be so kind as to...
Yes, of course. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
My name is William Rush. I'm the attorney for the applicant tonight, who is Christopher and Suzanne Ogia. So, obviously, I know we're short on time tonight, so I will try to get through this as quickly as possible. This is not a complicated application, so I think I can pretty much streamline it for you. So, this application contains the property located at 68 Forest Avenue, which is lot 2102, lot 45, and it's located in your R50 zone. The lot's approximately 50 feet wide, has a depth of approximately 150 feet, so it's approximately 7,462 square feet. Currently, there's a single-family home and on the property with a detached garage. The applicant is proposing to install an underground pool and patio in the rear yard. This application was carried from the March 14th meeting, at which time the applicant appeared by himself. He has since brought back counsel to finish the application. Now, since the meeting, since the March 14th meeting, the application has been revised, and this plan in front of you tonight has eliminated the need for two variances, which were the side and rear setback variances for the patio. We also significantly reduced the maximum improved lot coverage. So the applicant did this by reducing the size of the proposed patio, relocating the equipment pad, eliminating the proposed wood deck, and eliminating the part of the driveway that extends into the rear yard. With that, now the applicant is requesting the following variances. There's going to be two bulk variances from section 150-75A of your code for swimming pool side setback. The proposed pool is 5.3 feet from the side property line and 8.1 feet from the rear property line, and your code requires a minimum pool setback from the side and rear property lines of 10 feet. We're also going to require a bulk variance from section 150-17.5D4 for maximum improved lot coverage. The proposed maximum improved lot coverage is now 46.2%, and your code permits a maximum improved lot coverage of 40%. The original application proposed, at the time the original application came in on March 14th, the proposed coverage was 57.85 maximum lot coverage. So this variance has been reduced by 11.6%. So also should be noted that the existing maximum improved lot coverage currently on the site is 45.7%. So this increase is only 0.5% what's currently existing on the property. We're also going to need a bulk variance from section 150-17.5F4 for maximum aggregate coverage by accessory structures in the yard. The proposed maximum area coverage for accessory structures is 17.6%, and the code permits a maximum aggregate area coverage of 15%. So as you can see, this revised application has been substantially reduced the intensity of what was originally presented to the board. That was done by eliminating the wood deck, eliminating the driveway in the rear yard, and significantly reducing the patio surrounding the pool. And also, I'm sure everyone's happy that they did save the cherry tree as well. So the cherry tree is not coming down. At this point, I would typically call our engineer, who unfortunately is unavailable tonight, had to testify in front of another board. So I'm going to go right to the applicant and call Chris Ogia.
Mr. Villa, you were sworn under oath. This application was carried, so you're still under oath. I don't need to swear you again. Okay.
So, Mr. Ogia, can you tell the board where you live?
68 Forest Ave in Verona.
And who do you live there with?
My wife, Suzanne, and my two children, Avery and Jack.
And how long have you lived there?
We moved there, I believe, January of 2019.
Okay, so you're there about 4.5 years or so?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So just in general, what are you proposing to the board tonight? What do you want to do to your property?
I want to add an in-ground pool to the backyard.
And are you also adding a slight small patio back there as well?
Yeah, slight, yeah.
Okay. Now, you heard me just summarize the variances requesting tonight. Did I summarize the variances correctly?
You did, yes.
Are you asking for any other relief from the board tonight?
To my knowledge, no.
Now, also, too, as part of your application, you're shortening your existing driveway, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Now, with regard to the driveway, first of all, let's talk about, is your garage at the end of that driveway?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so basically, you're cutting off the part of the driveway that would run directly to the garage, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Since you've lived at the property, have you ever used the garage to park any of your vehicles?
No.
Okay, what is the garage currently being used for?
It's a home gym.
Okay, so you've never parked there before?
No.
Okay, and you're intending to cut off the driveway and park how far back in the driveway are you going to go?
In the front yard, you mean?
Yeah.
We have the full front driveways that are maintained, so,
And how many cars can you park there?
3.
Okay. And you don't see that being a hardship cutting off the rear parking being to the?
No, because we never park back there.
Is there currently a fence up there now?
There is, and it's gated, yeah.
Okay, and when was that gate put up?
I want to say about 2 years or so ago.
Okay, with the intent that you were never going to use the backyard for parking to begin with, correct?
Correct, yeah, that's why we also added those trees along the fence line, because we just don't park back there.
Okay. I want to address a couple issues that I noticed that came up in the minutes at your first appearance here with the board. With regard to the boundary line fences on your left and your right side, beginning on the left side. Now, have you discussed, your fence extends somewhat onto your neighbor to your left's property. Did you have any conversations with your neighbor regarding that fence?
I did, yes.
Okay. And did you present the board with a letter from the neighbor indicating that they take no objection to the fence, your fence being on the property?
I did, yes.
And with respect to the neighbor on the right side of the front of the boundary, you also have a fence that extends slightly onto the neighbor to your right as well. Did you submit the same letter to the board indicating that that neighbor had no objection to your fence encroaching upon their property?
I did. It was one in the same letter.
Okay. And with respect to the railroad ties that were actually built into the right of way for the township, can you tell me what you built there, what you installed there?
Sure. So along our driveway is about a 2 foot to 3 foot wood retaining wall that wraps around the front of the property. On the front of the property, it's, for lack of a better term, they're kind of flower stands or they're decorative, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay. And what was that installed for, other than just being decorative?
That's really it. The reason we installed them too is because prior to installing them, our property sloped right down into the sidewalk, and it became, anytime it would rain, we would get this like runoff, and the entire sidewalk would be just a muddy mess. So this kind of eliminated that, and it made the property look better.
Okay, so it did stop one of the runoff as well.
It did, yeah.
Okay. And you understand that you are in the right of way, correct?
Correct.
And you do understand that the right of way exists so that if the township wanted to expand the street or the sidewalk, they could tell you to remove those railroad ties.
That's right.
And could they be removed rather easily without any real damage to the home?
Yes. Yeah. So.
And lastly, with respect to the grade change, are you aware of the grade change that runs from the rear lot from your property to the street level?
I'm moderately aware, yeah. I know it exists.
Okay. But with respect to the rear yard where you intend to install the pool, is there any sloping area back there?
Where the pool will be installed is flat. The property does slope from the mid of the property down, but where the pool will be installed is a flat surface.
Okay. And also too, with respect to this plan, with the removal of the driveway, did you leave a certain portion of the driveway, a certain portion of the concrete in front of the garage?
I did, yeah. Just we have a basketball hoop attached to the garage that my kids play on. So we left a little portion of the driveway. Not a deal breaker if we needed to eliminate that.
I was going to ask you, if the board asked you this evening to remove that area of the driveway as well, would you have any objection to that?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, and if the board asked you to remove that area of the driveway, do you know the improved coverage, how much the improved coverage would be reduced by?
I do. It would bring us down to 43.5%.
Now, with respect to, we were handed about 3 minutes ago a letter from Boswell Engineering, the engineering report, so we had a brief chance to go through this. I want to direct your attention on page 2 under stormwater management, comments number 10 and 11. Do you have any objection to these comments and what's being proposed here?
I do not.
Okay. Also, too, with respect to the retaining wall, comment number 15, is it your testimony that this is already, that wall already exists?
Yeah, there's already a retaining wall back there at the very back property. We're not adding a new one.
So there's no new retaining wall being added to the rear of the property, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you have any objections to any of these comments or handling taking care of any of these matters if the board sees fit to approve this application?
Yeah, I don't have any objection to anything in there.
I have nothing further for Mr. Aguirre.
Board have any questions of our homeowner?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one comment about the front retaining wall, and that's, as stated, the encroachment in the right-of-way of the street is under the jurisdiction of the mayor and council. So if they require it to be removed, or he can request to keep it, and that's jurisdiction of the mayor and council.
Okay. We're not going to make you remove it.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a housekeeping question. This application was carried. The application had been deemed complete and the notice had been certified as been proper.
Okay.
And just to point out for the board, because I just looked this up actually, so the permitted accessory use in R50 is a swimming pool. Oh, that's more of a statement, not a question. But I just looked up the lot coverage definition, and it says that the portion of the lot which is occupied by buildings and accessory buildings. So presumably a pool doesn't count towards the lot coverage in that case, right?
It would, because it's a structure and a building, and so there's, I believe, another part of the code that says it counts towards the coverage.
Towards the lot coverage.
It counts towards the coverage as presented by the applicant, yes.
Okay, so this breakdown of lot coverage here then is not correct?
Well, for the it counts towards impervious coverage.
Right.
Did I misunderstand?
Yeah, no, lot coverage is just the building footprint and the accessory structure footprints.
The pool is an accessory structure.
Right, in which case this lot coverage calculations is not accurate.
I did not review that, so.
Are the setback numbers and?
No, but I believe the proposed pool is in the approved lot coverage.
Yeah, but by definition, that's what I'm looking at in the code. It says that a pool is an accessory use, in which case then you have to check the lot coverage definition, which from what I'm hearing is the building footprint and the accessory building footprints.
Correct, and if you look where the calculations are performed, you'll see proposed pool equals 480 square feet.
Maybe I'm missing it. It says, I'm looking under lot coverage calculations.
Improved lot coverage?
No, lot coverage. Right, but this is different. This is different than this number.
So if we put the pool into that, obviously I didn't go to law school because we did a math. If we put the pool into that, I still do not think we'd be requiring a new variance. Maximum lot coverage is 30%. And right now, at the 1,500 feet, we are at 20.1%, and we'd be adding 480 square feet to that.
It's 20, I'm sorry, you're right, 30. Yeah.
I'd just like to point out, the definition of lot coverage, quote unquote, or parentheses, building coverage, that portion of the lot which is occupied with buildings and accessory buildings, but not including other areas of impervious surfaces, such as walkways, driveways, patios, and open parking lots. When you go to the definition of improved lot coverage, it says that the percentage of lot area is improved with the principal and accessory buildings and structures, including all impervious surfaces, such as buildings, driveways, parking lots, garages, and other man-made improvements and swimming pools. So I would say it's an improved lot coverage, but not lot coverage.
I would agree. It just sounds like that might have been misinterpreted elsewhere.
Oh,
That's all.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, because I had the same reaction to that definition. Yeah, sorry. Not that I'm calling a spade a spade.
Just for clarification, then, the calculations are correct?
That seems to be the case. Yes.
I mean, I agreed that the calculations were correct, I just didn't, I was incorrect. I admit it.
I sit in that same chair for a different board, I understand.
You get one. I get one. One an hour.
Questions?
Am I reading this correctly? The proposed pool is 5.3 feet from the side property line and 8.1 feet from the rear property line. Are those still the numbers?
That's correct, yes.
Am I reading this correctly? The proposed maximum approved lot coverage is 46.2%, and the code permits 40%. Those numbers are still the same?
Those are correct,
As they
yes.
were before?
Yes.
Okay. That's my question. Thank you.
Can you talk about the neighborhood as a whole and drainage and slopes and all that?
Can you just comment on the neighborhood, basically, and what did you say, was the rest of the question?
The drainage and the slopes, how, this is a pretty high elevation in the back of the site.
Well, first, why don't you talk about the drainage off your property in general? That's something that personal information we want.
Sure, yeah. We've never really experienced any problems. One time our sump pump broke, and that was kind of an issue that wasn't really related to the rain. It was the sump pump broke. There was debris in it. Since we fixed that, we haven't had an issue at all because the French drains pretty much pump everything out into our front yard, well away from the property line. And with those retaining walls we put up front, we haven't experienced really any sidewalk flooding since. And I don't know, when we had the slope, it was just a muddy mess that was just kind of all over the place, but we've kind of eliminated that. Our property doesn't really, the rain on our property doesn't reach across the street. It just kind of goes left and right. So yeah, we don't really have any real problems.
Do any of your neighbors' property flood onto your property?
Not really, no. I mean, the water will table off sometimes in the back, but it just soaks into the grass, so it's not like a flood or anything.
How about from the rear lot? Do you have any flow from the rear lot?
That's the one I was talking about. Like sometimes we'll get it, it'll table off there, but it won't. There's nothing like flooding. It's not like a flooding situation. Also, if it helps, because we're eliminating the deck and the driveway, it's going to be more grass between the back and the front too.
Okay, I got a couple of quick questions here. The 4.7 to the water feature, so is the water feature then really the variance, or is it the pool? On here you have 4.7 to water feature. So that's actually the closer structure to the property line.
I know there are some municipalities that distinguish the vertical component of the sidewall.
I guess, so what is the water feature then, I guess, then, if that's considered a structure to be the variance for?
Well, we need the variance, obviously, for the pool setbacks.
Right, but the water feature, that's actually, is that what is that? Is that a built structure?
So we haven't fully designed that yet. It was probably just going to be pipes coming up. It's not going to be like a big waterfall brick thing, or anything like that, like a rock structure or anything like that. It's going to be pretty minimalistic. So,
Mechanical, is it mechanical or is it just a design feature?
Because it's 18 inches high, whatever it is.
It's,
We already are looking at a variance of 5.3 feet to the pool, so we could just as easily change it to 4.7 to include the water feature. Still too close.
Still too close, yeah, but I like, if we approve one, I just want to make sure that whatever we're approving now is getting closer to the property line with something else that's being built.
I don't think that's affecting the property line. It says 18 inches in height. I think like you were saying.
But you look at with the line right below it.
Flows out of it, almost like a drain.
I know, but like you're building an 18-inch structure, so like if you're really looking at a 5.3, then can we allow a 4.7?
Here. So it's like, there's a bigger space between that and that. Oh, and let's see from here.
I don't know, just,
I'll be honest with you, I don't know if that impacts the distance or not. I just don't know. I can't answer that.
Well, it depends what it is. It would impact the distance depending on what it is. I mean, it's
Big box that
part
comes out
of,
with
it's
water.
part of the, it's a man-made.
Sure.
and it looks like it goes the whole length of the
We'll
pool.
get rid of it.
Get rid of it?
Yeah, we'll
I
take
mean,
it
it's
off.
not, like, it's not part of the pool system is what you're saying.
Correct, it's more decorative, right?
Yeah, it's just water flowing.
I think it's more, because we're supposed to look like some kind of waterfall or something, but obviously it doesn't impact the use of the pool or anything like that, so I don't think it's that important to get caught up on.
And just more out of curiosity, why do you have the opening of the pool, the gate in the rear property?
Sorry, say that again?
Yeah, the existing fence to be upgraded with self-closure proposed at the opening in the back, or just how they wrote that note? Or were they pointing to that note
It's pointing to the fence,
in the back of the property?
anywhere on the fence.
Anywhere on the fence, okay. So the gate is somewhere else.
Yeah, the gate is along, if you follow up the driveway, on the left side of the house, there's no gate or opening back there. So I'm not quite sure what that arrow is pointing to.
And the fence and the gate enclosure that's required for a pool is actually done by construction when they get to the permitted part.
It's getting late, folks. We need to think faster. Are there any more questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I wonder if you could explain something to me.
Sure.
What is preventing you from allowing the pool setback to be 10 feet? What's preventing you from abiding by the requirements?
So I believe if we were to take it, let's just say shift it closer towards our house, on the right side would narrow, and then just aesthetically, we kind of wanted it towards the back of the property, so it's not in the middle of the property. Does that make sense?
So it's basically because you wanted the pool to be a particular shape or size,
Correct, yeah.
that's preventing you from adhering to the requirements.
To be honest, just to maximize the space that we could, possibly get a pool back there.
I think if it moves forward, I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like it also might trigger a variance with the distance with the pool from the house as well. Because I think that was originally a question that came up.
Has to be 10 feet.
And I also, from what I understand too, that is, right behind the retaining wall is the flattest area of the property. As you start to move forward, the backyard does begin to start to pick up a little bit of a slope as well. So for the ideal area for the flatness, that is the ideal area of the property that's coming right off. For some reason, the way the property developed over the years, the rear property really has no slope, whereas when you start getting closer to the house, it starts to pick up a little bit of a slope.
Did you ever think in terms of a smaller pool, or didn't that interest you at all?
We did. This was kind of what we were looking to do, though, in terms of size.
How old are your boys?
My son is 7 and my daughter's 10.
Well, the pool size has a lot to do with the age of the kids as well.
A lot of impervious area.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for answering.
Like you had mentioned, if it helps, we when we bought the house, we were already over, we were at 45 or so percent. We can bring that number down by eliminating the entire driveway, if that would satisfy you guys.
It wouldn't get, it would still, we'd still require a variance. It wouldn't get below the 40, but it would actually get below what currently exists in the property today. As I said, this application is 0.5% increase over what currently exists on the property today.
Are there any additional questions? If not, is there anyone from the public who would like to ask a question of the applicant? Okay, assuming this is your only witness, Counselor?
Considering the time, I will just stand on what's been presented to the board, the testimony and the evidence that's already been presented to the board, and I ask that the board look favorably upon this application.
Thank you. As long as there's no one from the public who'd like to make a statement on this, I will move to board deliberation. And would anyone like to give us a direction?
So I just want to point something out. This is the R50 zone, right? High density. And this butts right up against R40, which is very high density. There's also a significant slope from Forest Avenue up to Halsted. Pretty significant. So my concern is the size of this site and what, I certainly have an appreciation of what you're trying to do, but it seems like it's extremely populated for such a small site. And I'm concerned about, runoff, and it's not just sheet flow. It's not just stuff that's on the surface. It's the stuff that's underground too. You have to be concerned with.
So I can just address your concern. The Boswell engineering letter did indicate that they found the drainage system capacity is acceptable. So your own engineer has basically signed off on the stormwater drainage system.
Yeah, but that's, it's a current condition. Just because it's a current condition doesn't make it a correct condition.
Well, no, he's signing off on what's proposed. He's signing off on the proposal with the pool here. So.
Opinions? I'm uncomfortable that there is so much going on this property. I appreciate the applicant's efforts to eliminate items like a driveway and reduce a wooden deck or eliminate a wooden deck, but it still seems to be an awful lot going on a property that has a barely 11-foot driveway on one side and quite 3.6 foot to the property line on the other side. This house is already squeezed onto the property, and it's been added on with screen porches and a garage. There is an awful lot going on, and the property lines are skewed with fences. It's over in the right-of-way in front. It just seems to be an awful lot going on to add a pool and a patio, even with the materials that have been reduced. Any other thoughts? Surely mine aren't alone.
I realize you just got it seems like you just got to read the Boswell engineering report, but I guess on the last page, the engineer is suggesting that the items 7, 11, and 29 still need to be addressed. Are you prepared to comply with that?
Yeah, that was the testimony. Well, you already took the 7-Eleven, and 29, obviously the new fencing will require the permit, then the applicant is going to have to abide by the code for whatever the code is for fencing.
And I would ask Mr. Temke, can you elaborate on the statement that you made, that what he has to go before the council for? I didn't quite understand.
The railroad tie that's in the front yard that approaches into the front, into the right of way.
Okay.
Then-
That's an existing
But
condition
it's
now,
nothing
though.
immediate, they wouldn't have to.
No. Oh, okay.
He's just saying in the future, that's the jurisdiction.
Oh, okay,
It's
okay.
not part of the application.
Right.
Okay, that's it. That's what thank you for clearing that up for me. I was a little confused by it. Okay. Yeah, my only other comment, and I guess it's following up on what, the questions that Dr. Reese raised is, you could have eliminated some of this by just making the overall pool size a little bit smaller, and not, and alleviated some of the issues, that, regarding, setbacks and coverage of the lot. I understand, that it's something that, you think would be better from a quality standpoint for your, I guess, the size of the pool. But if you just brought it down a bit, I don't think we'd be talking about as much of this. Maybe I'm missing something here.
Nobody's talking.
No.
Folks, this is the time for deliberation.
I guess at this point, and would pose a question to the board if permitted, what would be an acceptable pool size, or what would the board possibly see favorably as a possible pool size?
Well, I'll say, from my opinion, I have less of an issue with the coverage, but it is, two setbacks, both rear and side, so and there is a lot going on. I would be more inclined if, the pool was moved a little more into the center, maybe even a little closer to the house as well, to help from that regard. But I know some of my colleagues probably want a lot less coverage.
What you're saying, if you wanted to eliminate the rear, you bring it forward towards the house at least 2 feet.
Before the board takes a vote, can I indulge the board to be carried one more time? So that possibly the applicant can take the comments. I think we're getting the reading of the room here. I think obviously the reading of the room is, we should come back with something a little smaller. So.
That constitute a...
Can I jump in here? I'm really concerned about the amount of structures and things that are on this piece of property and the lack of adherence to the requirements by the planning board. And I would feel that if I would be to vote yes on this, that I'd have to vote yes on a lot of other people's, proposals that came before this board. And so I would really like to see him try to make it smaller on his property and adhere more to the rules and regulations that were set forth by the planning board for Verona. So that's.
I think we're listening, loud and clear.
That's how, because if we were to vote yes on this one, then we should vote yes on every other one. And that brings forth property that with lots of impervious areas and, and too much coverage.
Well, but just to clarify, we have to look at each application individually. We can't use previous precedents or anything like that. But I guess my question for some other board members here is, even if this was reduced, does that mitigate the concern of kind of a macro scale? Lots going on, tiny little site, because I don't want him to spend any more money because it's not cheap to revise this stuff. If if that's a
True, but
concern,
we
that's
don't know-
not solvable.
But you don't know what he, I mean, he may come back with an as-right application, with a by-right application. So, you know, the board, if they're withdrawing the application at this point, not withdrawing, but asking that it be continued, I don't think it would be proper for the board to vote because you don't know what he's going to come back with. So he has the opportunity, and if he wants to spend his money, you know, to spend his money and come back, that's the choice that they're making. I don't think it's appropriate for the board to say, don't bother to come back because we're not going to approve it, because I don't think that's what I heard. I mean, we all heard what we heard, but, you know, there were some suggestions. So I'm not sure that, you know, it would be proper for the board to say, don't bother. I mean, if Mr. Rush wants to hear that, I suppose, you know, we can go down that line, but it's not something I would recommend.
I mean, obviously, I have the same concerns you do, and I have the same thought process you do, but I also agree with counsel too, that I believe my client is looking for an opportunity to maybe just sit down one last time with his engineer and see if he can come up with something that may be appropriate. And maybe at the end of the day, we may be withdrawing it anyway. I don't know yet, but I think he should have that conversation at least. But I do share the same concerns you do at this point, yes.
I sort of agree, the applicant is willing to council's point, if the applicant is willing to, you know, incur the additional cost of having it continued, I don't have a problem with that. But if some of the members are just totally opposed to putting a pool.
Well, you can't,
on-
but
you can't say
you
that.
can't say that. That's the point.
Because he could make it compliant.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Right.
Okay, so I would say, let's continue the application.
And he can withdraw if he decides
So
that.
they can't do it, and you can withdraw. Okay.
Mr. Rush, you consent to the application being adjourned?
Yes, I do.
Okay. There's really not a vote, Chairman.
No, but adjourn to,
Next meeting.
Or will you be ready for the next meeting?
I probably would see, is August available?
unfortunately, August, I don't
Okay,
believe
my client said he can make
we have
July,
enough people
so
for
we'll take July 11th.
So we already have one for July 11th, and we have a big one for July 11th.
Mr. Rush, then the matter is adjourned until July 11th. No further notice will be required, and if you have revised plans, the sooner you can submit them, the better.
I guess, is there an amount of time that?
There is not a 10-day requirement because you're just modifying the application, but, you know, as a courtesy, obviously, you know the
I'll get a
routine.
review letter.
Right, okay, right. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Now, we have a decision to make, folks. There have been, our third applicant has been sitting patiently for 3 hours waiting to be heard. Typically, we do not hear any new testimony after 11 o'clock. But I would entertain, if the board would give me some feedback, should we consider this hearing while we're
I
here?
would basically say that if we've already pushed two back to the July 11th calendar, and these people have been sitting here patiently waiting for 3 hours, so I would recommend that we allow them, and since they've been here before, and this is sort of it's the second bite at the apple kind of thing, I would be in favor of letting them present their case.
Okay. If no one has any objections to that, you notice he is the only one with a coffee mug. That's, folks, we will hear application 2024-06, returning 12 Linwood Road. You're all good from the last time. Your swearing in sticks.
Thank you very much for seeing us so late. We heeded a lot of your advice from the last time. We've reduced the amount of variances that we're seeking.
Just state your name again for the record.
This
and
is
your
Michael
company.
Paniotu, and I'm the pool builder. And so we got a letter a little later than we hoped, earlier today. And so we actually have a response that we didn't have time to print out. So there's a couple things on the Boswell Engineering report that were addressed. I could read them into the record if you would like. Specifically, bear with me a second, if you're just done. So we've addressed items 6B, 6C, 6E, 7, 15, 17, and 18. And so the way we've done that is with 6B, the proposed in-ground pool will be set back 8 feet from the side and rear property lines. There will be a 3-foot wide walkway at these locations, and we will meet the 5-foot minimum setback to patios per the ordinance. The rear porch and steps are 18 square feet in area. That was one of the concerns. They will remain. The pool structure is 278 square feet in the area, and the total area of the accessory structure in the rear yard is 296 square feet. The rear yard is 1,996 square feet. The accessory structure coverage in the rear yard is 296 over 1,996, which is 14.8%, which is below the 15% threshold. The pool equipment pad is located on the side of the house and is not considered in the rear yard. The area of the equipment pad is 21 square feet. This is added to the total of the lot coverage, which is 2,234 square feet and 36.9%. The rear porch was included, yes. And that was also included in the above calculation. So the coverage calculations have been revised as stated, and the soil fill quantities are 2,373 cubic feet or 88 cubic yards. And the total disturbed area will be in the rear yard. It'll be 1,996 square feet plus the side of stone walkway of 96 square feet or less than 2,100 square feet, which is less than the 5,000 square feet. Soil erosion measures will be added to the plan along with the notes regarding any damage to town property. So the only variance that we're currently seeking is the setback to the house. So we basically complied with all the other setbacks that all the other provisions that were talked about previously.
Just for the record, I believe your setback to the rear property line is identified as 8 feet, and the setback to the rear property line for a pool would be 10 feet.
So the rear property line is 10 feet?
10 feet. To both property lines.
Yeah, in the report it said 8 feet. Yeah, so if we're looking at minimum pool side yard setback per section 150-7.5A, the minimum side yard setback is 8 feet for pools. This is the R150 zone, I believe.
Red letter.
Say again? Am I looking to do both letters?
R50 you said, or R1?
It is
This is R50.
R50, correct.
And what code section are we looking at?
Currently I'm looking at, I'm just going over 6A, which is, it does say 10 feet. Okay. That's the building setback. And then patios must be a minimum of 5 feet, that's 6B. Yeah, I don't see anything flagged about the perimeter, the rear or side setbacks.
It says 157.5A says 10 feet.
150, 7.5A, and that's to the building, correct, or to the rear?
It says the wall of the swimming pool shall be located no closer than 10 feet to a side or rear yard.
So that means there's still a 2-foot
On the side and the rear.
required, yeah.
So it looks like we are seeking three in that case. We try to figure the pool and manage the size effectively. I redesigned the pool a few times to kind of conform to all of the rear and side setbacks based on the information I had at the time. And when drawing the pool, the actual pool itself, like if we were to actually have it fit in the backyard, would have been it would have been like unsuitably small in a way that it just wouldn't have built any value for the property given the circumstances. The 12 by 24 is the smallest size that we were carrying at the time. We do have other pools that are slightly smaller, but because of the shape, it wouldn't necessarily conform to the yard in the same way that this shape would. A rectangle, if we boxed it out, I actually had engineering plans that I sent to her. It didn't look good. It wasn't good. So we were trying to manage this the best way that we can so that we could fit everything appropriately. And this is what we came up with. We reduced the amount of impervious. We annotated more areas coming out. So the stone walkway wasn't talked about previously as coming out. The stone area all the way in the back. And we reduced significantly the left-hand side where we had a little bit of a patio area for lounge chairs and things like that. So at this point, we've minimized we've tried to minimize our impact on the adjacent properties. And when drawing up the plans, we had thought that our only impact was going to be on the dwelling itself. So the way we drew up all of the drainage in the yard, we had it going to the stone trench over here, and even still with the plans as shown, it will have a negligible impact on any of the adjacent properties.
Just to be somewhat nitpicky,
please.
It's incredibly helpful to bubble your drawings when they've changed and revise the date, because it's hard for us to see what's changed and what's not. But and I meant to say that to the other applicants tonight too. Yeah.
Thank you for your input.
Is there any adverse consequences to having a pool so close to the foundation wall?
There is, and the amount that we have the pool right now is basically the closest that we would want to get, because we don't want to be taking out any dirt from the exterior close to the building. But with the drainage that we have built in going past the wall, it will stop a lot of water flow going towards the building. So we're pretty confident that it won't have an issue on the dwelling.
Is there the proximity of the pool to the house?
Mm-hmm.
Safety issue with regard to jumping off the roof?
It could be a concern, certainly. From my experience, I think that she has older children, and I think that they're responsible enough to know. But future people who are living in the house might not think the same way.
Well, is there a industry compliance standard or?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
In general, it's on a town-by-town basis. There's some towns that you see the pools right up to the house, especially down by the shore where lots are a lot tighter. It really depends on where we are.
And what did you say about the deck?
So the lot coverage that we had over here, that we have two different types of decks. So when I did the draft, I sent it over to the engineer for review. And one of the things that was not annotated was that there's a square over here where the stairs are. This is going to be removed. And I was a little unclear with the Boswell Engineering where.
Okay, I'm sorry, you said a square over here.
Yeah, so a square over by the stairs where the pull stairs are. There's a square that has an X in the middle of it. I don't know if it's very visible. I believe that that's what they were talking about when.
It's a 10 by 12.
It's a 10 by 12 section.
Oh, I see, okay.
So we did two things with our reply, and one was we took into account the stairway that's in the back, because I wasn't sure if if the Boswell Engineering was referring to the actual stairwell or to that 10 by 12 deck that is currently there.
But it's going to be removed.
Everything's going to be removed, yes, correct.
Is there a seepage between, or how is the water in the drain dispersed?
So if you look, there's a pop-up emitter, and you see just north of that, there's a deck drain. It connects to the trench. And so right by the house, there's that drain that goes right into the trench.
You have to make sure that you pop up and mirror anything comes out of it doesn't flow into the neighbor's property.
Correct.
So the pop-up there, like since it's right on the property line, you're saying that it should be moved in?
Well, they got to grade it so that, if they can grade it so it doesn't go, I don't know the grade is based on the, what they provided. If it can be moved in and to ensure it doesn't go on the neighbor's property, you got to make sure it doesn't go on the neighbor's property.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. Is it a suggestion that we move it in maybe a foot? Or do you think that would suffice?
Move it in a foot and grade it.
Yep, okay.
Just for reference sake, we're at the point where we're asking the applicant questions. There's no one else in the room, so I'm not anticipating any members of the public having any input to this at all.
So take a walk out to Bloomfield Avenue and see if we can get something.
Not at this time of night. So, just so we're clear, if you have no more questions for the applicant, we can move to board deliberation.
Just to recap, we're looking at a 2-foot variance, 2-foot variance back, 2-foot side, no longer patio in the building setback variance for the 5.4 requiring 10. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, we're still looking for that one.
Okay. All right, I know, I'm just making sure that's where we were at, because in the beginning, he rattled off 45 things after 11 o'clock, so I'll make sure I caught up on that one. Okay.
This is where we rely on Greg to stay awake.
Coffee man over there.
I'm awake. All right. Board deliberation. I will be happy to lead off again because, as I said with the last one, it appears to be a lot going on on a small piece of property. And there really isn't, when you need a variance from the back and from the side and from the house and for the coverage, it sends a signal to me that there's too many variances to be granted. And I understand if you were under the impression that 8 feet was the number, your target number, that would have been discussable, but it's not, and there really isn't any room to move it. Whichever way you go, it's 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag.
Can you just clarify the coverage? I didn't think they're seeking variance for coverage.
The coverage, I think, might have been down to 14.7?
Yeah, we're under now at this point.
Okay, you're under. 40,
Yeah, when we,
Accessory, what we're ignoring.
right.
There's nothing for coverage.
The impervious coverage,
I believe we're under for that as well.
yep. All right.
Impervious coverage is 36.9, you said?
Thank goodness for that front lawn.
Yeah, we had tried to
36.6,
comply
I think.
with pretty much everything except for the building setback. So when we sent it to our
The
engineer.
proposed is
drafted the plan.
36.6, so it's under the.
And you took into account the front porch? Yes.
Yes, everything
So
should
they
be
need
accounted
variance
for
for
on
that.
on the plan.
That's why it's.
Okay, because it looks like the survey here, or the sheet 2 of 2, that does not show the front porch.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the second page with, was this page 1? Yeah, page 1 of 2, and the front porch is marked as 54 square feet.
Isn't it the whole width of the house? No? Okay. Think of a different house, sorry.
That front porch does go all the way across the front of the house, right?
Well, and the garage,
From the-
and then
Right, from the
from the front door.
from your front door all the way to the window, okay.
I did drive by, you actually have 2 openings going into the backyard, correct? One on either side of the house?
Yep.
They're both yours?
Yes.
Okay. I did a drive-by today, and I just wanted to make sure that I had the right house. Okay.
I think I would challenge the 54 square feet at the front porch, but I think regardless, you'll probably still be under the 40. But I think for the record, that might be not an accurate number.
Okay. Yeah, we still have 3.4% of lot coverage. That we have left.
So I kind of feel somewhat different than you, Dan, this time. I think kind of neighborhood context, there's some decent sized sites here, and they don't have some of the similar problems that we see in other parts of town where, you know, there's the garage in the back and lots of impervious coverage, and every single lot is like that. This feels like it's in a little bit of a middle of a sea of green back here. So I'm more comfortable approving this variance.
I'll say I appreciate the changes that were made from the initial application. The 2-foot setbacks to the rear and side, I don't have an issue with that. The 5.4 to the house, I mean, that's close. I would say it's more of a safety issue, but then also potential future resale value. People might not really like that, but that would not stop me from approving this application.
Yeah, I somewhat agree. I think once you install this, I think it's going to be a lot smaller than it looks on paper. But I don't think that's not for us to decide.
Good, any other?
If there,
If that's been approved, I think where this drainage being right in front of the property line is problematic. Where if water does spill into this, I don't know how you would prevent it from going into the neighbors to a pop-up when the pop-up's right on the property line. I think that needs to be reevaluated. This gets approved, or maybe have to be resubmitted to show, to verify that this will work as it's shown right now. I don't believe that will work.
Is that something?
I don't have any
Expertise?
expertise in this, but just logically, when you put an overflow on a property line, it's going to overflow to the property line.
I have a question. On the rear yard coverage, the patio would be included with the pool water. Patios are included in rear yard coverage. So you, with the 15%, excuse me, you've included the pool water, which comes to 13.9. If you add in the pool patio of 407 square feet, you're actually at 34% in the rear yard coverage, which would be another variance.
Is that what removing that deck?
Right, it's literally just, if you add your pool water and your pool patio square footage, saying that your rear yard total area is 1996, I'm getting 34% with the pool water and the patio.
So is the math wrong, or was a number not used?
A number was not used, so a patio is considered an accessory structure
Right.
right. So for the rear yard, you'd have to take the patio square footage and the pool water area square footage. So that comes to 34%. Where if you're just taking the pool water, I think you have 13.9. But you have to add in the pool patio to that.
Okay, so that, and then we have that a total of 685 square feet, correct? Between the pool water and the patio?
Yes, 685 square feet.
Does the patio extend all the way to the house, though? Is that what you're considering the patio?
Well, right now, the way that this is currently is I think what's drawn here is the existing, and we were just going off the existing and adding a little bit around the pool.
Okay, so is that 407? Does that include the 3-foot perimeter and all that?
Total, it should be the amount that's all there, because we're focusing on replacing all of the existing patio and replacing it with pool.
Right. Okay, so Kathleen, correct me if I'm wrong, but that requirement only applies to the rear yard setback, correct? Which is only 30 feet deep. Is that right? Because it's a percentage of the rear yard, right? 15% of the rear yard.
It's 15% of the rear yard.
Right, your rear yard is only 30 feet deep. So there could be some square footage that you're eliminating out of that. And I don't know, I can't tell off the top of my head.
So you have to, you'd have to calculate what part of the patio is in the rear yard. So with just the pool water, just the pool, you're at 13.9.
With just the pool water.
Just the pool water, is 13.9 of your 15%.
But that assumes that the edge of the pool is within that 30-foot rear yard.
Mm-hmm. Right, so that whole calculation would need to be, it's a fun shape too.
Like rectangles.
What's a rectangle?
So we have the rear yard at 1996.
Right, so 15% is 299, right?
So I see how you came up with that calculation at 34.
Right, just based on that, not based on me remeasuring.
Okay, so I think what the engineer did here with these calculations was he took the pool water, the pool patio, and then also removed the other calculations as well. But that, so there's things that offsets, I'm not sure.
Well, that's different though, because we're just talking about accessory structure coverage, not impervious coverage, which that stone area to be removed, that's just pervious coverage. That doesn't have anything to do with the accessory structure.
And patio is considered an accessory structure.
So what is P overage now, if we do the math?
I don't think that's for us to calculate.
Yeah.
Is anybody ready to call the question on this one?
I mean, I will say, I mean, outside of the rear and side, the building offset or the pool offset from the building, that to me is, I'm just gonna say it's a sticking point. I mean, we're talking about nearly 50%, and that's not necessarily just a Verona thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, that might be kind of a national standard. So, and I will say that that's kind of a tough point. There's multiple reasons for why that is what it is, and it's tough. I mean, the rear and side one, want to move on, but I'm having a tough one on that one. I mean, it's for multiple reasons, not just, you know, safety of the pool usage, but I don't know. I just want to make sure I kind of get that out there because it's a tough one for me to move on. So.
If we were to encroach a little bit more on the rear and on the side and did a little bit more drainage to capture that water with that.
Yeah, it's the splashing, it's potential flooding, it's the structural component, it's potential for electrical. I mean, that's just this growing body of concern inside of me. Like, I don't know. But I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay. So, back to my question. Is someone prepared to make a motion on this application?
I will make a motion to approve this application.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I don't recall any conditions other than the pop-up.
Well, I was going to say, the pop-up emitter thing, they removed that, I think, that was the engineer's recommendation.
Could it be more specific for our attorney putting
Well,
together?
I think we could just, subject to engineer's approval, in fact, it's not another, whatever, subject to engineer's approval. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We have one condition on the pop-up, subject to engineer's approval. Madam Secretary, would you please call the vote?
Dr. Reese?
No.
Mrs. Murphy-Braddix?
No.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeBarcelo?
Yes.
Mr. Mathewson?
No.
Mr. Cordes?
Abstain.
Vice Chair Weston?
Yes.
Chairman McGinley?
He abstained?
Yeah. Am I not allowed to?
No,
You're allowed.
You certainly can.
Okay.
However, we do need to address an issue at this point. I'm counting it, and we end up with 8 votes. Dr. Reese is our alternate. So for the vote, Dr. Reese is not included in the 7 voting members. So that would remove one of the no votes. Which puts me in a very difficult position.
You figured that out, Chairman?
Yeah. Obviously, you heard my previous statements on the application and on the previous application. I wish I could appreciate the fact that, you know, our architect on the board said that this is going to look a lot smaller in the yard than it does here on paper. But to me, it's paper and numbers, and it's just too much in that area. If the house were a little forward, sideways, and I appreciate all the effort to remove the you know, the other materials that would have put you over on impervious coverage, but I am not comfortable, and I am going to have to vote no, which puts our vote at a 3-3 tie. And in the event of a tie, it doesn't pass.
Would we be able to, I mean, I understand they just to vote, but would we be able to conditionally move the pool, not necessarily move it, but redesign that one area of the pool to meet standards?
There's already been a vote, so it would have to be a new application.
It's tough, and as I said, hope you can appreciate our position.
I appreciate you meeting with us. Thank you very much, everybody, especially on late night. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Folks, I have one more item, I believe, since I misplaced the agenda again. We do not need to go to executive session, but in light of sending out an RFQ, the town sent out an RFQ for an attorney, and what I would like to do is, we've gotten several responses back. I'd like to set up a 3-person subcommittee to review the responses and come back to the board with a recommendation. I'd like to have Genevieve be the lead person on that subcommittee. We call that a chair. And if possible,
I'll volunteer.
okay. And Paul? Okay. So we've got 3 people for that subcommittee. You can run that as you like. We'll have Mal forward the applications that have been received. According to the town clerk, you guys do that in some sort of confidence, come back, make a recommendation in public at a meeting, and then we vote as a board. We have the right to hire the attorney.
So how do we handle that? Because I believe our current contract with council ends at the end of this month.
Yeah, I mean, it's a formality. I mean, if it's not, you know,
how about
it could be extended a month, and you know, it's not like there's a state on it. If I decide to come back.
If the man in the office says, you know, you can't be paid without it.
Right.
Motion to extend the contract existing for Greg until such time as we have a report from the committee.
Second.
This way we make sure you get paid.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. August. Anybody want to come to a meeting in August?
What's the date? It's the second Thursday of August.
It's not on there because
The chair is not available.
The 8th.
the chair will be in Alaska.
It's August 10th.
August 8th?
Yeah. No, there probably will be a time you would go, because we would have enough regular members here.
If you want to, I'll be here for the meeting, the recommendations.
Yes.
Usually they don't have an August meeting.
I already sent the notification back that I'll be.
So what was the consensus on an August meeting?
Anybody here? Here?
I mean, I'm here.
Everybody?
I'll be at the shore, but I'll drive up.
Oh, perfect. Okay, you can have an August meeting.
I could not be here. I don't know where this is going here.
I'm not going to be here for August.
Is there will be an agenda? I mean, that's,
Right, we want, as applications are coming in, we have not scheduled anything for August. And we're telling people it would be August or September, depending on whether there would be a meeting. So we just wanted to clarify that there will be an August meeting. So should things come in or we have to carry, we know that we can
Well,
do it.
that Starbucks application, I'm going to be bold and say that it may not be wrapped up in the July meeting.
Right.
So,
Two residential.
so you have to, you know,
And we're carrying, well,
And you're
I'm not
carrying-
sure we're going to get that other one yet.
you're not sure, but we're carrying another.
We're gonna, at least, we're carrying at least one, and there might be a second one that we've already carried, plus Starbucks for July.
Okay, but Starbucks would come after the other one that we're
Right,
carrying,
so-
so we still in Pool City, and then we're.
We got to get a little more efficient about that.
What Pool City?
I think it's right. You know, I was thinking, like, I don't get it.
We have to do our reorganizational meeting in July is when we adopt the calendar. We'll change the time frame. Everybody's good with that, right? Changing the meeting time to 7:30?
it has not been noticed.
2 hours from here
So
forward,
the July meeting, okay, so the July meeting.
Will be
will
8
still be at 8,
because it's posted.
because it's posted. And then,
All right, the board is supposed to publish every year
right,
is supposed to publish all of the dates and the times.
we have not yet.
That's July.
Because
We
that would
approved
be
it in
this-
July.
Because we're end of the year now. So now is the.
We approved it.
That's why we want,
That's a good time to
July
change.
meeting has to be, and then would be posted going forward.
That's the next
Slow us
12
down,
meetings.
Next
we're
12
rolling.
meetings, will be
Don't slow us down, we're rolling.
Not that I want to give you the report, and that allows us to get at least a half.
Everyone knows where it is.
The zoning board is supposed to make a report to you.
Yeah, we're looking for it. It started 5 zoning officers, 3 zoning secretaries, 2 attorneys, and
I'm almost there.
1 lazy chair.
Almost a year. I know,
Folks.
we're so on, right?
We are,
We have.
good. Motion to adjourn? Hearing none, let's start another. We're off.
Okay, Richie, cut it off.
Richie, wake up. Sure, we'll have a 10